most of them. Despite its constant presence, pinning down a single perfect definition of time is surprisingly tricky. Scholars across fields have wrestled with this for ages. You see, many of our definitions fall into what's called a circular trap. We try to explain time using concepts that already depend on the idea of time. Physics, however, offers a different approach. Forget the abstract. In physics, time is defined by what it does. It's what a clock measures. Now, that might seem overly simplistic, but it holds a remarkable truth. From the ticking of a grandfather clock to the precise oscillations of atoms in an atomic clock, we've come up with ingenious ways to measure this fundamental aspect of our world. The sun's daily journey, the phases of the moon, even the precise signals from satellites orbiting Earth. These phenomena mark the relentless march of time. It's these reliable cycles that allows us to impose order on our lives and make sense of the universe around us. So, we can measure time with incredible precision, but that doesn't tell us the whole story. What is time at its most fundamental level? This question pushes physicists to the edge of their knowledge. Here's where things get fascinating and perhaps a little mind-bending. Einstein's theory of relativity throws a wrench into our understanding of time. Suddenly, time wasn't this constant, unchanging flow. Instead, it became interwoven with space, creating a single fabric called space-time. Imagine a giant cosmic sheet where every event from a coffee mug shattering to a star exploding has its own unique location in both space and time. But according to relativity, time isn't absolute. Two observers moving at different speeds could experience time differently. For one, time might tick by normally, while for the other, it might seem to slow down. It's all relative to your perspective in the universe. This gets even more mind-boggling when we delve into the world of quantum mechanics, the science of the incredibly tiny. There, time seems to be absolute and universal, quite different from the flexible nature described by relativity. This clash of ideas is known as the problem of time. Reconciling these two theories is one of the biggest challenges facing physicists today. It's a humbling reminder that even the most fundamental aspect of our universe can hold hidden depths. Time, once thought of as simple and straightforward, is now a complex puzzle waiting to be solved. So, we have this mysterious force shaping our universe, but how do we actually measure it? Throughout history, humans have devised ingenious ways to track the passage of time. We have two main tools for this. Number one being the calendar, which you can think of as a mathematical map for organizing larger slices of time. From the cycles of the season to the precise dates of historical events, the calendar helps us make sense of long-term patterns. And then there's the clock. This is where things get down to seconds, minutes, and hours. Whether it's a simple sundial or a classic grandfather clock or the ultra-precise atomic clocks used in science, these devices measure the relentless ticks and talks of time. Nowadays, our phones and computers seamlessly blend both concepts, showing us not only the date, but the precise time down to the second. To make this work, all our timekeeping needs a starting point, a reference called an epoch. It's from the central point that we count forward and backward to determine any specific moment. The quest to measure and organize time stretches far back into the mists of human history. Let's take a look at one of our earliest tools for this task, the calendar. As far back as the Paleolithic era, some 6,000 years ago, evidence suggests that people were already using the moon's regular phases to track time. These were the first lunar calendars where a year consisted of 12 or 13 lunar months. But there was a problem. Without adjustments, a purely lunar calendar quickly falls out of sync with the seasons. This led to the development of lunisolar calendars. These clever systems would add an extra 13th month in some years, keeping the calendar roughly aligned with the solar year and changing seasons so important to agriculture. The influence of these early systems can still be seen today, where the numbers 12 and 13 hold special significance in many cultures. Across the globe, other fascinating calendars emerge. The ancient Mayans, for example, developed a system based on religious and astronomical observations. Their year had 18 months, each with 20 days and a special 5-day period at the end. These ancient calendars highlight the deep human need to understand the world around us and how the endless march of time shapes our lives. Calendars, as ingenious as they were, have always been a work in progress. Even the best solar calendars are never quite perfect. A good example of this is the Julian calendar, introduced by Julius Caesar back in 45 BC. It brought some much needed order to the Roman world, but it had a slight flaw. That seemingly tiny error allowed the dates of important events like solstices and equinoxes to drift by roughly 11 minutes every year. Jump forward to the year 1582 and we meet Pope Gregory XIII. He decided it was time for a fix, introducing the Gregorian calendar. It took centuries for this new calendar to be fully adopted across the world, but now it's the global standard that we all rely on. But the quest for the perfect calendar didn't end here. Have you ever heard of the French Republican calendar? It was developed during the French Revolution as a way to break with traditions and create a more rational system. They even reimagined the clock. 10-hour days, each with 100 minutes, each minute with 100 seconds. Unfortunately, it was perhaps a little too radical and was eventually abolished in 1806. The story of calendars is one of constant refinement of humanity's struggle to measure the passage of time with ever-increasing accuracy. Calendars are just one part of our timekeeping story. Throughout history, all sorts of clever devices have been created to track the flow of time with increasing precision. This whole field of study is called horology, and it's filled with fascinating inventions. Let's travel back to Egypt around 1500 BC. There, we'd find a curious tool resembling a bent T-square. This simple device tracked time using the shadow cast by its crossbar, an early form of a sundial. In fact, the Egyptians get credit for dividing the day into smaller parts, leading to our 12-hour system. Speaking of sundials, they became widespread tools for marking the hour with just the sun's position in the sky. But sundials have one obvious limitation. They can't show the time at night. For reliable timekeeping even in darkness, the ancient world turned to water clocks, also known as clepsydras. These were among the most accurate tools of their time. One was even found in the tomb of Pharaoh Amenhotep I. However, they needed constant attention to keep them functioning. Ancient astronomers from Greece to Mesopotamia carefully tracked time as part of their observations of the heavens. And in the Middle Ages, Arab inventors greatly improved the design of water clocks. But the real revolution in timekeeping came in 11th century China, where the first mechanical clocks powered by intricate gears and a mechanism called an escapement were developed. From flowing water to flowing sand, human ingenuity knows no bounds when it comes to timekeeping. Take the hourglass, for example. With its simple but elegant design, it became an invaluable tool for navigation. Did you know that Ferdinand Magellan relied on 18 hourglasses per ship during his historic journey around the world? In temples and churches, the passage of time was often marked by a different kind of slow burn. Incense sticks and candles. Their steady consumption provided a way to measure periods dedicated to prayer and rituals. Meanwhile, within monastery walls, water clocks and later intricate mechanical clocks helped regulate the daily rhythm of life. Figures like Richard of Wallingford in the 1300s built remarkable clockwork masterpieces that were more than just timepieces. They were miniature models of the heavens. Speaking of clockwork, we owe a great debt to scientists like Galileo Galilei and Christian Huygens. Their work with pendulums revolutionized clocks, making them far more accurate. Huygens even gets credit for adding the minute hand. And here's a bit of fun trivia. Do you know where the word clock comes from? Its origins lie around the sound of bells. Bells were used to mark time both on ships and in monasteries, and the sound they made, that clock-y or clock-a, eventually gave us the word we use today. Clocks have taken on a myriad of forms throughout history, from the humble wristwatch to the almost mythically complex clock of the long now, designed to keep time for 10,000 years. And powering these devices, we find an equally diverse range of mechanisms. The steady pull of gravity, the release of energy from coiled springs, or the precise dance of electricity. To keep them accurate, clockmakers have harnessed the reliable swing of a pendulum or the vibrations of microscopic crystals. Speaking of reliable, did you know that the first alarm clocks appeared in ancient Greece? They used water to trigger a rather noisy whistle, a clever, if startling way to start the day. Of course, the idea was later refined by inventors like Levi Hutchins or Seth E. Thomas. For those navigating the vast seas, a special kind of precision was needed, the chronometer. These portable timekeepers allowed sailors to determine their longitude, revolutionizing travel and exploration. It was the brilliant work of John Harrison that finally made this possible. But if you think chronometers are impressive, wait till you hear about atomic clocks. These marvels of modern technology are accurate within seconds over millions of years. They achieved this by harnessing the incredible stable vibrations within atoms, an incredible microscopic metronome. Atomic clocks are so precise that they actually form the basis for our global timekeeping systems. In fact, our very definition of a second is now tied to the behavior of cesium atoms. In 1967, 1 second is officially defined as the time it takes for a cesium atom to complete over 9 billion cycles of a specific energy transition. And today, even the everyday task of checking the time is intertwined intertwined with incredible technology. The global positioning system, combined with clever networking, keeps clocks across the world astonishingly synchronized. Now let's talk about atomic clocks a little more. We've talked about clocks of all shapes and sizes, but none are quite as remarkable as the atomic clock. These marvels of modern science are the absolute champions of timekeeping, accurate to within seconds over millions of years. So, how did they achieve this incredible feat? Imagine an orchestra. But instead of instruments, the atomic clock uses the incredibly stable vibrations of atoms themselves. Scientists focus microwaves on cesium atoms, causing them to change energy levels in very specific ways. The atomic clock counts these vibrations, and incredibly, this tiny dance within atoms forms the basis for our modern definition of a second. One official second is equal to over 9 billion cycles of this specific atomic transition. The impact of atomic clocks go far beyond the lab. They're the silent workhorses behind our entire GPS system. Those constellations of satellites orbiting Earth rely on atomic clocks to pinpoint their location with incredible accuracy. This precise data then gets relayed down to us, allowing our phones and navigation systems to show us exactly where we are. But the quest for ever better timekeeping never stops. While cesium clocks currently reign supreme, scientists are already exploring even more precise options. Strontium clocks, for example, promise to be twice as accurate, and other designs using exotic elements like mercury hold the potential to lose or gain only a single second in a staggering 400 million years. These mind-boggling levels of precision push the boundaries of human achievement. Atomic clocks are a testament to our ingenuity and our deep desire to understand and measure the very fabric of time itself. Now let's talk units, the building blocks of time measurement. The foundation of our modern timekeeping system is the second, officially abbreviated as S. It's what those super accurate atomic clocks are counting. From there, we build up to more familiar units, starting with the minute, or min. 60 seconds make up 1 minute. Think of it as a handy little bundle of seconds. And then next is the hour, or H. This is where things get interesting. An hour is only 60 minutes, or 3,600 seconds. And then there's the day. Normally, a day has 24 hours, which works out to about 86,400 seconds. But here's where it gets a little tricky. Due to things like daylight savings time and the occasional leap second, the length of a day on the calendar can sometimes shift by a second or two. This is where that difference between astronomical time based on Earth's rotation and the precision of atomic time comes into play. Throughout history, we've looked to the heavens for answers about time. The predictable motion of stars, the rising and setting of the sun, these became our first clocks, marking the days, months, and years. We even use Earth's rotation to define the familiar 24-hour day and the 60-minute hour. But here's the problem. Nature isn't always perfectly regular. Earth's rotation actually slows down slightly over long periods due to things like tidal forces. It might only be by fractions of a second, but those tiny discrepancies matter immensely when extreme precision is needed. Imagine trying to navigate a spacecraft or keep the gears of the global internet in sync with the clock that's constantly shifting. For this, scientists turn to the microscopic world and the steady rhythms within individual atoms. That's the realm of atomic time. Instead of looking at planets or stars, atomic clocks measure the incredibly stable energy changes within specific atoms, usually cesium. When bombarded with specific frequency of energy, these atoms jump to a higher energy state, and counting those jumps lets us define a second with incredible precision. We're talking about an accuracy that would be off by a minuscule fraction of a second over millions of years. In fact, the scientific definition of a second is now based on atomic time, exactly 9,192,631,770 of these jumps within a cesium atom. Think of time standards as the rule books for measuring time. They're not just about keeping clocks in sync, but defining exactly what we mean by a second, or pinpointing a specific date. Things used to be a lot simpler, with timekeeping tied to the rotation of Earth and the movement of the stars. But then came the incredibly precise atomic clocks in the 1950s, and everything changed. Nowadays, we have a whole hierarchy of time standards, each suited for different purposes. First, we have International Atomic Time, or TAI. This is ground zero for modern timekeeping. It's purely atomic time scale, based entirely on the ticking of those super accurate atomic clocks. Next, we have Universal Time, or UT1. This is the older astronomical way of determining time based on Earth's rotation. Unfortunately, our planet isn't a perfect timekeeper, so UT1 can drift slightly compared to TAI. And then next we have Coordinated Universal Time, or UTC. Think of UTC as the bridge between the atomic world and the astronomical world. It's based on atomic time, but it's adjusted with leap seconds to stay roughly in line with Earth's rotation. This way, the sun still generally rises and sets at the times we expect. The next, we have the Global Positioning System, or GPS. This vital system transmits signals that include a very precise time based on UTC. And that's not all. To make things even more interesting, we divide the globe into time zones. Each zone keeps a standard time that's usually a whole hour offset from UTC. This is why it's an hour later in New York than in Los Angeles. And because of daylight savings time, in many places these offsets even change throughout the year. Finally, scientists use even more specialized time standards tailored for specific areas like astronomy, or those that take the intricacies of general relativity into account. Throughout history, the question of how does time work hasn't just been for scientists. Philosophers and theologians have grappled with this concept as well, influencing our entire understanding of life and the universe. Many ancient cultures, from the Incans and the Mayans to the Babylonians and ancient Greeks, embraced a cyclical view of time, often picturing it as a great wheel. Within this concept, history doesn't move in a straight line, but rather through reoccurring ages. This idea is deeply woven into religions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. The cyclical understanding of time has profound impact on how we view our own lives. It suggests a pattern of birth, growth, decline, and ultimately renewal. The idea that the universe itself undergoes these cycles can provide both comfort and a sense of deep connection to the cosmos. This stands in contrast to the linear view of time that became more dominant in Western thought, where time is seen as an arrow moving ever forward from a fixed creation towards an ultimate end. Each worldview holds its own implications for how we live our lives and understand our place in the grand scheme of things. The lens through which we view time is deeply influenced by our religious and cultural backgrounds. In the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, time is largely understood as linear. Rather than a repeating cycle, it's seen as a path with a distinct beginning and an ultimate end. This idea has its roots in the concept of creation, a singular divine act that brought the universe and time itself into existence. From this initial moment, time flows purposefully forward. It's a canvas upon which humanity history unfolds, guided by divine will. In the Christian tradition, this linear view culminates in the idea of an end time, an eschatological event marking the conclusion of the present order. This perspective casts time as both precious and finite, emphasizing the significance of each individual's choices and actions within their allotted lifespan. The Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes reflects on this concept. While the text predates a fully developed linear understanding of time, it explores the idea of events unfolding within a framework of defined seasons and moments. There's a sense of destiny at play in this perspective, hinting at the later development of the linear view with Abrahamic faiths. The ancient Greeks had a profound understanding of multiple facets of time. Their language even distinguished between two distinct concepts, Chronos and Kairos. Chronos, often personified as the god Kronos, embodies the familiar concept of time we use today. Sequential, measurable, and ever marching onward. He's the time of the clock and the calendar, the type of time we track and plan our lives around. Think of him as Father Time, with his long beard and relentless march. But then there's Kairos, a deeper, more elusive concept of time. Kairos is the opportune moment, the fleeting instant when everything aligns perfectly. It's the time of divine intervention, of unexpected opportunity, of a sudden shift in destiny. In a sense, Kairos transcends the mundane constraints of Chronos. The interplay between Chronos and Kairos shapes so many Greek myths. We see it in the heroic tales of seizing the right moment in battle, and also in tragic stories of missed opportunities and actions taken at the wrong time. This rich understanding reminds us that time isn't just a number ticking away. It's a complex tapestry of the ordinary and extraordinary, of the predictable and those moments when the very fabric of fate seem to ripple and change. Within the realm of Jewish thought, time takes on an even more enigmatic and paradoxical nature. Some rabbinical teachings suggest a view of time as fluid and malleable, not unlike an accordion expanding and contracting. This challenges our usual conception of time as a rigid, unchanging progression. Kabbalah, the Jewish mystical tradition, takes this even further by asserting that our everyday perception of time is a grand illusion. Kabbalists see time as a construct of our own limited understanding, while true reality exists beyond the confines of linear time. This has profound implications for how we approach concepts like free will and the divine. If time is not as fixed as we perceive it, perhaps our actions have far greater potential to shape our own destiny and impact the world around us than we first imagined. It's also intriguing to consider how this perspective might reconcile with the physical understanding of space-time in modern physics, where time is shown to be relative and somewhat flexible. Western philosophy is a battleground of ideas about the very nature of time. On one side, we have the realist view, championed by figures like Isaac Newton. This perspective sees time as an independent dimension, a kind of stage upon which the universe plays out. Events happen within time, but time itself marches on regardless. Opposing this is the view held by philosophers such as Leibniz and Immanuel Kant. They argue that time isn't a tangible thing out there in the universe, but rather an intellectual construct, a way for our minds to make sense of the world. They argue time doesn't flow. It's how we organize events and relations to each other. This debate delves into intriguing questions. Is there an objective time out there, or is our experience of time partly subjective? Can time be measured in isolation, or can we only quantify it in relation to change and movement? The roots of this discussion stretch back to the ancient world. Greek philosophers pondered whether time was a linear progression or a cycle, whether it was finite or infinite. Indian thinkers explored the concept of cyclical time, mirroring the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. Plato believed time was a creation of a divine being, brought into existence along with the universe itself. Aristotle, on the other hand, linked time inextricably with motion and change. He saw time as a measurement of how the world around us transforms. The quest to understand time echoes through millennia of human thought. From the ancient Vedas of India, with their grand cycles of creation and destruction, to the mind-bending musings of St. Augustine, philosophers have grappled with this elusive concept. Greek thinkers like Parmenides and Heraclitus offered contrasting views that continue to resonate today. Parmenides saw time as an illusion, while Heraclitus emphasized the ever-changing nature of reality. This debate raged for centuries, culminating in a great clash of ideas between Isaac Newton and Gottfried Leibniz. Newton championed the concept of absolute time, an unchanging foundation of the universe. Leibniz argued that time was relational. It only takes on meaning in the context of objects and their motion. But perhaps the most intriguing insights come from those who question the very reality of time. St. Augustine famously grappled with its nature, asking, "If no one asks me, I know. But if someone asks, I know not." He ultimately views time as an internal stretching of the mind, connecting our experience of past, present, and future. Immanuel Kant brought in yet another perspective. He argued that time, like space, is a fundamental part of how the human mind structures the world. We don't perceive time as it truly is, but only through the lens of our own consciousness. This tapestry of thought highlights the extraordinary depths hidden within such a simple question. What is time? There's the cyclical time of Eastern traditions, the clash between absolute and relative time, and the questioning of time's very reality. Immanuel Kant's revolutionary ideas about time shook the foundations of philosophy. He rejected the idea of time as an external force or a river that carries us along. Instead, he argued that time is an essential part of our own mental toolkit, a way for our minds to make sense of the world. It's one of the fundamental lenses through which we perceive order within the chaos of sensations. Kant believed that neither time nor space are tangible things that exist out there in the universe. Rather, they are part of the framework of our minds, a system we use to organize events, measure distances, and understand the movement of objects. His ideas have been immensely influential, shaping how we think about the nature of reality itself. However, at the turn of the 20th century, the philosopher Henry Bergson challenged this view. He rejected the idea of time as a neat, measurable structure imposed by our minds. Instead, he introduced the concept of duration. To Bergson, true time, duration, was something fluid, creative, and deeply intertwined with our individual experiences and memories. This fundamental disagreement highlights a key question. Is our experience of time primarily a product of our own minds, organizing our perceptions as Kant argued, or is time a raw ingredient of reality as Bergson believed, an expression of the ever-changing creative forces of the universe? Martin Heidegger boldly challenges our usual conception of time. Most of us imagine ourselves moving through time as though it were an external landscape, but Heidegger suggests we turn this notion on its head. We don't exist within time, we are time. By this, he means our very sense of being is inseparable from our awareness of past, present, and future. Our memory of what has been and our anticipation of what might be shape the present moment and our experience of life. For Heidegger, this breaks down the rigid linearity of time. Our consciousness can fluidly access different points in our personal timeline, a concept he calls ecstasis. Fast forward to the modern era, and philosophers continue this intense debate. Is time fundamental or a construct of our minds? Does the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously, or is there a continuous flow from one to the next? The tenseless or B theory of time offers a mind-bending perspective. It suggests we can replace phrases like will happen or has happened with tenseless variations. The future, they argue, is as fixed as the past, just not experienced by us. Opposing this is the tense or A theory of time. This view maintains that the flow of time is real, the future open-ended, and fundamentally different from the past. Our verb tenses exist for a reason, they assert, because there's an inherent dynamism to time itself. Perhaps the most perplexing concept is imaginary time, made famous by Stephen Hawking. It proposes an alternative dimension of time orthogonal to our usual experience. Finite, yet boundless. It's a concept that pushes the boundaries of our imagination. While there's no easy answer, one thing philosophers do seem to agree on is a distinction. Physical time appears to be an objective feature of our universe, while psychological time, how we individually experience the passage of time, is deeply subjective and influenced by our own minds. Is time as we experience it a mere fabrication of our minds, or a fundamental pillar of the universe? This question has plagued thinkers for millennia. As far back as ancient Greece, philosophers like Antiphon and Sophist proposed that time was not a concrete thing, but merely a concept we use to measure and make sense of the world. Parmenides took it a step further, declaring time, motion, and change to be nothing but grand illusions, a radical stance echoed in some Buddhist philosophy. Jumping to the 20th century, J.M.E. McTaggart stoked the debate with his famous paper, The Unreality of Time. He argued that since events constantly shift from being future to present to past, the very idea of time becomes logically inconsistent and contradictory. However, many modern physicists hold a different view. Inspired by Einstein's relativity, they see time as interwoven with space, forming the very fabric of our universe. Some, like Julian Barbauer, even suggest that time as we know it disappears at the most fundamental level of reality, and only motions create our illusion of flow. Another intriguing perspective of that is presentism. Presentists believe only the present moment truly exists. The past is merely a memory trace, the future just potential. This view has strong implications. It essentially casts time travel as fundamentally impossible. Opposing presentism is eternalism, which asserts that past, present, and future are all equally real, just at different locations along the timeline. Then there's the growing block theory, a sort of hybrid where the past and present are fixed, but the future remains an open canvas. For centuries, our understanding of time was shaped by the ideas of Isaac Newton. He envisioned time as an unyielding force, like an arrow soaring through space. Every second was identical, everywhere in the universe. This idea of absolute, unchanging time provided a solid foundation for classical physics and our everyday experience. But then came Albert Einstein in 1905, and his special theory of relativity shattered our notions of time. He made a radical claim. The speed of light in a vacuum is constant for all observers, regardless of their own motion. This seemingly simple principle had profound consequences. Einstein showed that if the speed of light must stay the same, then time itself must be relative. Time is not an absolute stage where events play out, but rather a dimension interwoven with space, creating something called space-time. Observers moving at different speeds would experience time passing at different rates. Time could literally speed up or slow down depending on how fast you are moving and the influence of gravity. To visualize this, imagine time not as an arrow, but as a river. It flows at different speeds depending on the terrain, warping around massive objects and even slowing down near strong gravitational forces. This means that time experience on Earth isn't identical to the time experience on a fast-moving spaceship or near a black hole. The work of physicists like J.C. Half and Richard Keating dramatically confirmed Einstein's ideas. By flying atomic clocks around the world, they demonstrated the real-world effects of time dilation. Clocks traveling eastward in the direction of Earth's rotation tick slower, while those going westward tick slightly faster, direct evidence of time's flexibility. Time has a peculiar quality unlike anything else we know. Unlike the dimensions of space, where we move freely back and forth, time only seems to flow relentlessly in one direction, from past to future. We remember yesterday, but not tomorrow. The past seems fixed, the future open-ended. This directional flow is called the arrow of time. But here's the mystery. Many of the fundamental laws of physics are time symmetric. If you reverse the direction of time, they would still work perfectly. A ball bouncing, for instance, looks just as plausible whether you play the video forward or backward. So why then does time itself seem so stubbornly one-directional? Physicists have identified several potential arrows of time operating in our universe. Number 1 being the radiative arrow. Light waves spread outwards in expanding circles, never the reverse. This hints at a link between energy dispersal and time's forward march. The next is the entropic arrow. The second law of thermodynamics states that disorder, or entropy, tends to increase in isolated systems. Imagine an egg shattering on the floor. The reverse, pieces spontaneously assembling back into a whole egg, is so improbable that we never observe it. And then there's the quantum arrow. The very act of measurement in quantum mechanics seems to introduce a time asymmetry. This collapse of potentiality into a definite state is thought by some to be irreversible. And then there's the weak arrow. Certain subatomic interactions involving the weak force exhibit an ever so slight preference for one direction of time. This phenomenon is still poorly understood but tantalizing. And then finally, we have the cosmological arrow. The universe itself is expanding, driven by a force we don't fully understand. This irreversible expansion provides perhaps the most obvious arrow of time. The big question is, are all of these arrows related to a single fundamental principle that dictates time's flow, or are there multiple contributing factors at play? The debate rages on, and it touches on deep questions of causality, randomness, and the very nature of the universe we inhabit. For a long time, Newton's approach to time seemed perfectly sufficient. Clocks ticked along reliably, and his laws of motion allowed for precise predictions. Time appeared as a bedrock upon which to build our understanding of the physical world. However, as the 19th century progressed, cracks started appearing in this neat picture. Physicists studying electricity and magnetism encountered strange behavior that couldn't be fully explained with the established notion of time. The behavior of light, in particular, became a thorny issue. Enter Einstein once again. To resolve these discrepancies, he offered a radical solution: synchronizing clocks not with an abstract notion of absolute time, but using the constant speed of light itself. If light travels at the same speed for all observers, regardless of their own motion, then time could no longer be seen as a universal, unchanging background. What Einstein demonstrated is mind-bending. If you and I are moving at different speeds, we would literally measure a different amount of time passing between the same two events. This was a fundamental break from the comforting world of Newton, where all clocks in the universe ran in lockstep. Einstein's theories of relativity forever shattered our understanding of time. Gone was the idea of time as a separate universal stage. Instead, he revealed time and space as inextricably linked, forming a four-dimensional fabric called space-time. Think of space-time like a giant trampoline. Observers in different locations or moving at different speeds are standing on different parts of this trampoline. Each observer's perspective is shaped by how their motion and local gravity warp the fabric around them. Now, imagine a spaceship hurtling through space at near light speed. To its crew, time seems to flow normally. Their clocks tick, they age, and everything feels the way it should. However, a stationary observer watching the spaceship fly by would see something extraordinary. The spaceship would appear distorted, flattened in its direction of travel, and all the clocks on board, including the biological clocks of the crew, would seem to be ticking incredibly slowly. But it's not just a one-way street. To the spaceship crew, it would be the stationary observer who appears slowed down and distorted. Both perspectives are equally valid, a consequence of their relative motion within the pliable space-time fabric. This even influences how we see cause and effect. Imagine the crew beams a light signal back to the stationary observer. For them, it travels an immense distance across the cosmos. However, from the spaceship's perspective, that vast distance is compressed, making the journey seem far shorter. This is because their rapid motion through space is also motion through time, warping the very shape of the path that light takes. The key takeaway? Time itself bends in response to gravity and motion. What seems like a short interval to one observer can be a vast stretch to another. The simple rules of past, present, and future start to blur, making way for a much more complex and fascinating view of how the universe operates. And all of this is called time dilation, and it's one of the most startling consequences of Einstein's relativity. And this effect has been dramatically confirmed in experiments with subatomic particles. These tiny bits of matter have a well-defined lifespan. When zipping around in a particle accelerator at incredible speeds, these particles live much longer from our perspective than they would if they were at rest. From their perspective, it's the distances they travel that shorten. Einstein also revolutionized our concept of simultaneity. picture two lightning strikes hitting opposite ends of a speeding train. For someone standing on the ground at the midpoint, the flashes of light from each strike would arrive at the same time, meaning those events were simultaneous. But for someone riding in the train, the light from the flash in front would arrive before the light from the flash in the rear. Simultaneity, it turns out, depends on your frame of reference. The key to understanding the revolutionary change brought about relativity lies in contrasting two fundamental transformations: the Galilean transformation of Newtonian physics and the Lorentz transformation at the heart of Einstein's theory. Traditional physics assumes time is absolute. Imagine a graph where the vertical axis is time and the horizontal axis is distance. A stationary observer's world line is vertical, time ticks on, but they don't move in space. If this observer starts moving, their line tilts, reflecting their new velocity. However, the crucial part is that all horizontal slices of this graph, representing the now for different observers, remain perfectly horizontal. Everyone's now aligns. Einstein blew this apart. He showed the speed of light is constant for everyone. On our graph, this means light beams follow 45-degree angle lines. These form a light cone. Anything within it is potentially connected to the observer by cause-effect. Here's the twist. When an observer accelerates their axis warp, the horizontal now line tilts upwards towards the future light cone. Events an observer previously thought were simultaneous now shift in time, some further in the past, some in the future. Simultaneity collapses. What's now for one person isn't for someone else. While we often think of time as smooth and continuous, some theoretical models suggest there might be a fundamental limit to how finely we can divide it. This is the concept of time quantization. Imagine time not as a smooth line, but as a series of tiny, indivisible ticks, much like individual pixels make up a digital image. The Planck time, an incredibly tiny fraction of a second, about 5.4 times 10 to the negative 44th seconds, emerges in theories as a possible candidate for the smallest possible chunk of time. Why does this matter? Our current best theories of physics, like the Standard Model and general relativity, break down at extremely small scales like those near the Planck time. Some physicists believe that this breakdown points to a new, deeper theory of physics where both space-time and time itself become quantized. One such area where this might be relevant is loop quantum gravity. In this model, space-time itself is envisioned as a network of tiny interconnected loops. Time quantization could be a natural consequence of this loopy structure. However, it's important to stress that time quantization remains a speculative concept. As of now, there's no direct experimental evidence to confirm whether or not time truly has a minimum indivisible unit. The second law of thermodynamics is a cornerstone of physics. It states that entropy, a measure of disorder in a system, always tends to increase over time. Think of a cup shattering or smoke dispersing. It's essentially impossible for these processes to run in reverse. This gives rise to the entropy arrow of time. Now, here's where things get fascinating. While entropy gives us an arrow of time, many of the underlying laws of physics don't care about time's direction. A ball bouncing looks perfectly plausible whether you play the video forward or backward. So, why is our universe a place where eggs break but never unbreak, where ice melts but never spontaneously forms in a warm drink? Some physicists, like Brian Greene, propose this as a statistical fluke. Maybe most directions of time are high in entropy, and our universe, with its ordered past and increasing entropy, is simply an uncommon situation, like getting 10 heads in a row when flipping coins. However, there's a catch. This idea of time-symmetric entropy doesn't quite match our everyday experience. We don't see isolated systems suddenly decreasing in entropy. The asymmetry of time seems far more stubborn than simple statistics would imply. This leads to two major possibilities. Number one, our current understanding of entropy is incomplete. There might be some hidden factor that makes an increase in entropy far more likely than a decrease, ensuring the arrow of time we observe. Or number two, time's arrow is tied to an even deeper principle. Perhaps it's rooted in the expansion of the universe itself, forcing order to decay, but leaving us with many unanswered questions. The idea of time travel has captivated the human imagination for centuries. Stories of adventurers leaping through time, altering history, or witnessing the future hold immense appeal. But is any of this remotely possible? Sadly, the laws of physics as we understand them pose serious challenges. One major obstacle is causality. Imagine traveling back in time and preventing your own grandparents from meeting. You wouldn't exist to travel back in time in the first place. This is the classic grandfather paradox, a logical tangle arising from time travel that violates cause and effect. There are a few potential ways to address this. Number one being the parallel universes. Perhaps when meddling with the past, you simply create a new timeline, leaving your own origin untouched. This aligns with some interpretations of quantum mechanics. Or number two, the Novikov self-consistency principle. This idea argues you can't truly change the past. Any attempt to do so would create events that conspire to ensure the original timeline happened anyway. It's as if the universe protects its own history. Of course, even ignoring paradoxes, the practical aspects of time travel are incredibly daunting. General relativity hints that manipulating space-time to create paths through time would require vast amounts of energy and perhaps exotic forms of matter we don't fully understand. Despite the difficulties, time travel remains a compelling what if. It forces us to examine the very nature of free will, the relationship between cause and effect, and whether or not the future is truly unwritten. For centuries, scientists envisioned the cosmos as a three-dimensional stage where the drama of the universe played out. Time was a separate force, marking the passage of events. But then came Einstein, and his revolutionary idea shattered this picture forever. Einstein realized that time couldn't be divorced from space. He proposed that the two are interwoven, forming a four-dimensional fabric called space-time. This wasn't just abstract mathematics. He asserted that this space-time fabric warps and bends in response to matter and energy. Massive objects, stars, planets, even you and I, create dents in space-time, altering the paths of the objects and even the flow of time itself. It sounded far-fetched, but Einstein's general theory of relativity predicted some startling consequences. One was the phenomenon known as frame dragging. Imagine Earth spinning in the vastness of space. According to Einstein, it shouldn't just tug on objects with gravity, but actually twist the surrounding space-time ever so slightly. For years, this remained just a theory, but science marches on. And NASA's Gravity Probe B was designed to test this bizarre idea. It carried 4 incredibly precise gyroscopes into orbit. If Einstein was wrong, these gyroscopes would stay perfectly aligned towards a distant star. If he was right, Earth's rotation would subtly but unmistakably drag them off course. The results were stunning. They did drift. Space-time around our spinning planet was indeed contorted. This extraordinary experiment offered direct evidence that space isn't just a backdrop. It's a dynamic player interlocked with time itself, and gravity is the tool that molds it. We've explored time as the enigmatic fourth dimension, woven into the fabric of space-time alongside space. Einstein's theories revealed a universe far stranger than we could have imagined. A universe where gravity bends space and time, and the flow of time itself can be stretched or slowed. But what if the strangeness goes even further? Imagine if not just space, but time itself could curve back on itself in a grand loop. Just as some theories propose that traveling forever in a straight line through space could bring you back to your starting point, could time be cyclical as well? Ancient cultures around the world held beliefs in cyclical time, where epochs of creation and destruction followed each other in an endless loop. Science fiction explores similar concepts, with characters traveling through time only to find themselves back where they began, their journeys creating paradoxes or fulfilling inevitable destinies. While there's no scientific evidence to support a closed time loop, the idea is intriguing. Perhaps the universe itself has a cyclical nature, expanding and contracting in a cosmic heartbeat, with time echoing this immense rhythm. This concept ties back beautifully to the curvature of space-time. Einstein's general relativity suggests that massive objects warp space-time. On a grand enough scale, could the mass and energy of the entire universe cause space-time to curve back on itself, creating a closed loop in both space and time? We don't have the answers yet, but this is the beauty of science. It allows us to explore these mind-bending ideas, pushing the boundaries of our knowledge and forcing us to question our assumptions about the cosmos. Our experience of time doesn't always align neatly with clockwork precision. Psychologists and philosophers have long studied a phenomenon known as the specious present. This refers to the fact that our sense of now isn't a razor-thin instant, but a short interval, a kind of moving window through which we perceive the world. E.R. Clay first coined this term, and William James explored it further. He believed our minds hold on to a fading echo of what just happened, blending it with the current sensory input. This gives us the feeling of the present moment as a continuous flow, even though it technically consists of a series of mini snapshots. Think about listening to a melody. Each individual note exists only briefly, yet our minds link them together, creating the experience of the piece as a whole. In a similar way, our perception of time smooths out these discrete micro moments into seemingly unbroken flow. The exact length of the specious present is still debated. Some experiments suggest it might last a few seconds, potentially influenced by the type of sensory information we're processing. This adds a fascinating layer of complexity to how we experience the passage of time. Time isn't just a concept out there in the universe. Our very bodies and brains are intricately involved in how we perceive and experience its passage. Amazingly, there's no single timekeeping center in the brain. Research shows that time perception is a complex process involving multiple regions, including the cerebral cortex, cerebellum, and basal ganglia. One fascinating area is the suprachiasmatic nuclei, a tiny bundle of cells that governs our circadian rhythm, our body's 24-hour biological clock. This internal clock influences our sleep-wake cycles, hormone release, and even body temperature fluctuations. Beyond that, our experience of time can be profoundly influenced by chemicals within our own bodies. Stimulants, for example, can increase the release of neurotransmitters like dopamine. This can excite neurons, making them fire more rapidly, potentially leading to an overestimation of how much time has passed. Depressants, on the other hand, can dampen neural activity, leading to the opposite effect, a feeling that time is dragging by. A specialized field called mental chronometry goes even further. By carefully measuring reaction times in response to specific tasks, researchers can glean insights into the speed of mental processing and how our brains sequence information over time. This sheds light on a profound idea. How we experience the flow of time isn't just about external clocks, but it's deeply intertwined with the inner workings of our own biology and minds. Even the seemingly simple concept of time must be learned and understood over the course of our lives. As young children, our understanding of time is very limited. Infants and toddlers live almost entirely in the immediate present, guided by simple cues like hunger and tiredness. Their world is a whirlwind of now and not now. It's around the ages of 5 and 6 that children start grasping the broader concepts of past, present, and future. They begin to make sense of experiences that have already happened and anticipate those still to come. This is a crucial developmental milestone, helping children organize their memories, plan simple actions, and understand stories. As children enter elementary school between the ages of 7 and 10, their grasp of time becomes even more sophisticated. They learn to tell time using clocks, read calendars, and understand concepts like days of the week. With this, they gain a deeper ability to structure their lives and understand the rhythms of daily and weekly routines. This developmental journey reminds us that time isn't a singular, universal experience. How we interpret the passage of moments is shaped by our cognitive development. It's an ability we gradually build within ourselves along with countless other skills that help us navigate the world. While clocks and calendars offer us an objective way to measure time, our personal experience of it can be surprisingly malleable. Various factors can warp our perceptions, making hours seem to fly by or minutes to stretch out uncomfortably. Psychoactive drugs, as we discussed, have a profound effect on our neurochemistry, potentially speeding up or slowing down our internal clock. But it's not just chemicals that can distort time. Optical illusions, known as temporal illusions, can trick our brains into misjudging the duration of events. The Kappa effect is a great example. Imagine seeing two flashes of light in different locations. It can skew our perception of how much time passed between them. Age also plays a role. Many people have the sensation that time seems to speed up as they get older. While the reasons behind this are still debated, one theory ties it to changes in neurotransmitter levels. Younger brains with a greater abundance of excitatory neurotransmitters might be better equipped to handle the rapid fire of information, giving them the illusion of time unfolding more slowly. Furthermore, neurological conditions like Parkinson's disease and attention deficit disorder can significantly impair an individual's sense of time. This highlights the delicate interplay between our mental state and our ability to accurately track the world around us. We tend to think of time as something intangible, an invisible force flowing around us. However, cutting-edge research suggests our brains fundamentally understand time through the lens of space. It's as if we have an internal mental timeline, where we arrange past, present, and future. Incredibly, the shape and direction of this mental timeline are influenced by culture and experience. Western cultures, with their left-to-right reading and writing, often envision time flowing from left, which is the past, to right, the future. But for cultures with right-to-left writing systems, the timeline can be reversed. This gets even more intriguing when we look beyond our everyday experience. The Yupno people of Papua New Guinea link their sense of time to the landscape. Their river flows downhill towards the ocean, so the past is downhill for them and the future is uphill towards the source. The Pormpuaus, an Australian Aboriginal group, arranged time according to cardinal directions. For them, photographs of a man aging would be placed east to west, with the youngest version of the man in the east. These remarkable examples show that there's no single, universal way that humans conceptualize time. It's shaped by language, environment, and the deepest aspects of how we perceive our world. This suggests other abstract concepts like causality or even numbers could be also mentally organized in dramatically different ways across different cultures. Time isn't just about clocks and calendars. It's a powerful force woven into the fabric of our societies and impacting our personal lives. Sociologists and anthropologists study a concept called time discipline. This encompasses the rules, both spoken and unspoken, that govern how we measure, value, and utilize time. Think about it. Working hours, school schedules, the emphasis on punctuality and deadlines, these reflect our society's shared and sometimes stressful understandings of time. Sociologists like Arlie Russell and Norbert Elias have explored the connections between time, power dynamics, and economic systems. Time use has a huge practical impact. It's a key factor studied in fields like urban planning, transportation, and education. Researchers analyze how people divide their time between activities, work, leisure, commuting, and even sleep. While technology alters how we live, some patterns remain remarkably stable, like the average amount of time we're willing to spend commuting. On a personal level, time management is a skill many of us strive to master. Calendars, planners, and productivity apps all aim to help us estimate task lengths, prioritize, and hopefully stay on top of our busy lives. The way we manage our time reflects our individual values and goals. A key way we make sense of the world is by understanding sequences of events, or the order in which things happen. From grand historical narratives to the simple steps of a recipe, knowing what came before and what happened after is crucial. This concept of cause and effect is deeply embedded in how we reason. When events are strung together in a sequence, we look for causal relationships, why something happened, and what consequences it had. This ability lets us analyze the past, predict possible futures, and create detailed plans. Sequences of events take many forms. For one, stories in history. Narratives, both real and fictional, rely on sequences to give them structure and meaning. What happened earlier in a story shapes our understanding of later events. Number two is procedures and instructions. Think about building furniture or following a recipe. Detailed steps in the correct order are essential for success. And then we also have science and technology. Understanding natural processes often involves breaking them down into sequences, the stages of a chemical reaction, the development of an embryo, or the steps that lead to a technological malfunction. Specific tools help us visualize and track sequences of events. Timelines offer a clear visual representation, while fields like law, finance, and engineering use specialized methods to analyze sequences and pinpoint critical moments for investigation or intervention. Understanding how events unfold over time isn't just about the past, it's also about planning for the future and making informed decisions about the best course of action. We've explored space-time, the subtleties of perception, and the ways time and culture intertwine. But the mysteries of time aren't reserved only for scientists in white lab coats. The very act of pondering time, of questioning your own experience of it, makes you a participant in the grand quest for understanding. Remember, groundbreaking ideas have come from the most unexpected places. Perhaps the next major breakthrough about the true nature of time will come from someone with a fresh perspective, someone who dares to ask new questions. Could that someone be you? Don't be afraid to observe, to wonder, to imagine. The history of science is filled with ordinary people driven by extraordinary curiosity, people who changed our understanding of the universe. The secrets of time are out there, woven into the fabric of reality, waiting to be discovered. Go forth, explore, and keep pondering the question, what is time? You might be amazed by what answers you find. Thank you everyone for watching. My name's The Big Why. Don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new to the Why Not family, a follow. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. A 17th century rationalist philosopher proposed a monistic view of reality where God and nature are one and the same. This implies that the universe itself is imbued with consciousness or mind, a concept that resonates with the anima mundi. Leibniz, a contemporary of Spinoza, developed the concept of monads, simple, indivisible substances that are fundamental building blocks of reality. He suggested that each monad possesses a unique perspective and degree of consciousness, contributing to a collective consciousness or harmony of the universe. universe. Kant, an 18th century German philosopher, explored the idea of a transcendental unity of apperception, a unifying principle that synthesizes our diverse experiences into a coherent whole. This concept, while not explicitly equivalent to the anima mundi, suggests a deeper interconnectedness between individual minds and the world they perceive. Schelling, a German idealist philosopher, embraced the concept of the world soul more explicitly, viewing it as a creative force that animates and unites all aspects of reality. He saw the natural world as a living organism, imbued with the spiritual essence that permeates all things. Hegel, another German idealist, developed the concept of the Weltgeist, or world spirit, which represents the collective consciousness of humanity and the historical unfoldings of reason in the world. While not identical to the anima mundi, the Weltgeist shares a similar emphasis on the interconnectedness of human consciousness and the broader unfolding of history. The anima mundi, with its roots in ancient philosophy and its continued influence on modern thought, invites us to contemplate the profound interconnectedness of all life and the possibility of a universal consciousness that transcends our individual selves. The concept of anima mundi found a prominent place in the philosophy of Plato and his followers. Plato himself adhered to this idea, envisioning the cosmos as a living being endowed with the soul and intelligence. In his dialogue, Timaeus, he described this living cosmos as a creation of the demiurge, a divine craftsman who fashioned it to be self-identical and intelligible to reason. This living universe, according to Plato, is a single visible entity containing all other living creatures, which are akin to it by nature. It is a grand, harmonious whole, guided by a rational pattern expressed in mathematical principles and Pythagorean ratios. Plato's Timaeus also identifies this living universe as a god, named Uranos and Cosmos. This depiction, as scholars have argued, demonstrates Plato's attempt to bridge the gap between the poetic traditions of his time and the earlier pre-Socratic philosophers who also sought to understand the fundamental nature of the cosmos. Following Plato's lead, the concept of the world soul became a central component in Neoplatonic cosmology. Neoplatonists, who sought to synthesize and expand upon Plato's teachings, further explored the relationship between the world soul, the demiurge, and the seven planets. They saw the world soul as a mediating force between the divine realm and the material world, connecting all things in harmonious and interconnected whole. The world soul, in Neoplatonic thought, was not simply a metaphorical concept, but a living reality that permeated the cosmos, animating it with intelligence and purpose. This idea had a profound impact on subsequent philosophical and spiritual traditions, influencing thinkers across centuries and cultures. The Stoics, a school of Hellenistic philosophy founded in 3rd century BCE, held a unique perspective on the anima mundi, considering it to be a sole vital force in the universe. In Stoic cosmology, the universe is a living, breathing organism imbued with a divine essence known as pneuma. This pneuma, often translated as breath or spirit, is a fiery substance that permeates all things, from the smallest particles to the vast expanse of the cosmos. For the Stoics, the pneuma was not just a physical force, but also a rational and intelligent principle that governs the universe. It was seen as the source of all life, motion, and order, guiding the unfolding of events and ensuring the harmonious function of the cosmos. In human beings, the pneuma manifests as the soul or psyche, which is responsible for our rational faculties, emotions, and desires. The Stoics believe that our individual souls are fragments of the universal pneuma connected to the world soul and ultimately to the divine logos, the rational principle that governs the universe. This Stoic view of the anima mundi emphasized the interconnectedness of all things and the inherent rationality of the universe. It offered a holistic perspective on life in the cosmos, suggesting that we are not isolated individuals but rather integral parts of a greater whole, animated by a shared vital force. The Stoic conception of the anima mundi, with its emphasis on the unity of the universe and the interconnectedness of all beings, has resonated with many thinkers throughout history, influencing philosophical and spiritual traditions across cultures and time periods. The concept of the world soul also found its way into Gnosticism, a diverse set of religious and philosophical movements that flourished in the early centuries of the Common Era. Gnosticism, which emphasized spiritual knowledge as the path to salvation, drew inspiration from various sources, including Platonism and early Christianity. With Gnosticism, the world soul has often associated with the figure of Sophia, a divine feminine principle representing wisdom and knowledge. Sophia was seen as a creative and generative force, responsible for the manifestation of the material world. However, in some Gnostic myths, Sophia falls from grace, becoming entangled in the material realm and giving rise to the Demiurge, a lesser creator god who is responsible for the imperfections and sufferings of the world. In this context, the world soul is seen as both a source of creation and a source of suffering, reflecting the Gnostic dualistic view of the universe as a battleground between good and evil. Despite the complex and often contradictory nature of the Gnostic beliefs, the concept of the world soul remained a central theme in many Gnostic systems of thought. It offered a way to understand the interconnectedness of all things, the origins of the material world, and the potential for spiritual liberation from the constraints of physical existence. The Gnostic interpretation of the world soul, with its emphasis on spiritual knowledge and the quest for salvation, added a new dimension to this ancient concept. It highlighted the potential for the world soul to be both the source of enlightenment and the source of suffering, depending on one's relationship to it. This complex and multifaceted understanding of the world soul continues to intrigue and inspire spiritual seekers and scholars alike. The concept of the world soul also found a unique expression in Manichaeism, a dualistic religion founded in the 3rd century AD. In Manichaeism, the universe is divided into two opposing realms, the realm of light representing good and the realm of darkness representing evil. In this dualistic framework, the world soul, also known as the light soul or living soul, was seen as a divine entity trapped within the material world of darkness. This imprisonment of the world soul in matter was a central theme in Manichaean cosmology, representing the struggle between good and evil. The Manichaeans personified the world soul as a suffering Jesus, a figure similar to the historical Jesus, who was believed to be crucified in the world. This mystical crucifixion was not limited to the cross but extended to all parts of the material world, including the sky, soil, and even trees. This idea is expressed in Coptic Manichaean psalms, which lament the suffering of the world soul and express the yearning for its liberation from the clutches of darkness. The Manichaean concept of the world soul, while rooted in dualistic cosmology, also emphasized the interconnectedness of all things. The suffering of the world soul was seen as a reflection of suffering inherent in the material world, and its liberation represented the ultimate triumph of good over evil. This unique interpretation of the world soul highlights the diverse ways in which this concept has been adapted and reinterpreted throughout history. While the specific details may vary, the underlying theme of a universal consciousness or life force that connects all things remains a powerful and enduring idea. The concept of a world soul also finds parallels in Mandeism, a Gnostic religion with roots in ancient Mesopotamia. In Mandeism, the world soul is not explicitly named as such, but it bears resemblances in the concept of mana, a complex and multifaceted term with various interpretations. Mana can be variously translated as mind, soul, treasure, garment, intelligence, heart, spirit, or being. It has been compared to the philosophical concept of nous, which is intellect or mind, and carries connotations of consciousness, awareness, and divine essence. In Mandean scriptures, Mana is often depicted as a lamenting entity, expressing sorrow for its descent into the material world. This echoes the Gnostic and Manichaean themes of a divine soul trapped within the confines of matter. However, Mana also represents a source of knowledge and enlightenment, a pathway to spiritual liberation. It is seen as a divine spark within each individual, a connection to the transcendent realm of light and truth. The Mandean concept of Mana, while not directly equivalent to the Anima Mundi, shares some key similarities. Both concepts emphasize the interconnectedness of all things, the presence of a spiritual essence within the universe, and the potential for individual consciousness to transcend the limitations of the material world. By exploring the diverse interpretations of the world soul across different cultures and religious traditions, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the universality of this concept and its enduring relevance for understanding the nature of consciousness and our place in the cosmos. The concept of Anima Mundi continued to evolve and find new interpretations during the 12th century Renaissance and the rise of scholasticism. The school of Chartres, a prominent intellectual center of the time, delved into Plato's Timaeus and explored the nature of the world soul. Thinkers like William of Contius and Bernardus Sylvestris, influenced by Neoplatonic interpretations, began to see connections between the world soul and the Christian Holy Spirit. They suggest that the world soul, as described by Plato, could be understood as a veiled or metaphorical representation of the Holy Spirit, a divine force that animates and sustains the universe. However, this interpretation was not without controversy. Peter Abelard, a renowned theologian and philosopher, faced condemnation from Bernard of Clairvaux and the Council of Sens in 1141 for expressing views that were seen as too closely aligned with pantheism, the belief that God is identical to the universe. William of Contius, perhaps wary of facing similar accusations, retracted his earlier writings on the world soul and revised his work in De Philosophia Mundi to avoid avoid further discussion of this potentially contentious topic. Despite these challenges, the exploration of the anima mundi within the context of scholasticism demonstrates the ongoing fascination with this concept and its potential to bridge philosophical and theological perspectives. It highlights the dynamic interplay between ancient wisdom of Christian theology as thinkers sought to reconcile classical ideas with their religious beliefs. The concept of the anima mundi also found expression in Hermeticism, an esoteric philosophical and religious tradition that emerged in the late antiquity and Renaissance periods. Hermetic philosophers like Paracelsus and Robert Fludd drew inspiration from a variety of sources, including ancient Egyptian and Greek philosophy, as well as Jewish and Christian mysticism. Paracelsus, a 16th century Swiss physician and alchemist, viewed the world soul as a vital force that permeates all of nature, connecting humans, animals, plants, and even minerals. He believed that this universal soul could be accessed and harnessed through alchemic practices, leading to healing and transformation. Robert Fludd, a 17th century English physician and occultist, further developed the Hermetic concept of the anima mundi. He envisioned the world soul as a vast network of interconnected energies, with the human soul being a microcosm of the larger cosmic soul. Fludd believed that by understanding the principles of the world soul, one could gain insight into the hidden workings of the universe and achieve spiritual enlightenment. The Hermetic conception of the anima mundi emphasized the interconnectedness of all things and the underlying unity of the cosmos. It offered a holistic view of reality, where the human soul was not seen as separate from the world, but an integral part of a larger cosmic order. This Hermetic perspective, with its emphasis on the spiritual dimensions of the natural world and the interconnectedness of all beings, has continued to influence esoteric and mystical traditions to this day. It provides a rich and complex framework for understanding the relationship between the individual soul and the universal soul, offering insights into the nature of consciousness, the healing power of nature, and the potential for spiritual transformation. The concept of a world soul or universal consciousness also resonates with Jewish mysticism, particularly in Kabbalistic tradition. A parallel concept can be found in the notion of supernal wisdom. Supernal wisdom is a transcendent and all-encompassing wisdom that permeates and gives life to all of creation. It is a divine energy that flows through the universe, connecting all beings and things in a harmonious whole. In the teachings of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, a prominent Hasidic mystic, this sublime wisdom is not merely an abstract concept, but a living reality that can be apprehended by a perfect tzaddik, a righteous individual who has achieved a high level of spiritual attainment. The tzaddik, through their deep connection of the divine, is said to attain cosmic consciousness, an expanded awareness of the interconnectedness of all things. This heightened awareness empowers the tzaddik to mitigate conflict and disharmony in the world, bringing healing and reconciliation to individuals and communities. The concept of supernal wisdom, like the anima mundi, emphasizes the interconnectedness of all life in the presence of a unifying force within the universe. It offers a spiritual perspective on consciousness, suggesting that our individual awareness is connected to a greater cosmic consciousness. This idea has profound implications for our understanding of our place in the world and our responsibility towards others. It encourages us to seek deeper connections with the divine and with each other, recognizing that we are all part of a larger cosmic being. The concept of a world soul or universal consciousness is not exclusive to Western thought. Similar ideas can be found in various Eastern philosophies, offering diverse perspectives on the interconnectedness of life in the universe. The concept of Brahman is often seen as analogous to the anima mundi. Brahman is the ultimate reality, the supreme cosmic principle that underlies and permeates all of existence. It is often described as pure consciousness, the source and essence of all things. The concept of Purusha, the cosmic self or soul, also shares similarities with the anima mundi. Purusha is the eternal and unchanging consciousness that witnesses and encompasses the entire universe. It is the source of all individual souls, which are ultimately manifestations of this universal consciousness. Paramatman, another term used in Hinduism, refers to the supreme self or the highest reality. It is the transcendent aspect of Brahman that dwells within each individual, connecting them to the universal consciousness. In Chinese philosophy, the concept of qi often translates as vital energy or life force, bears resemblance to the anima mundi. Qi is believed to be the fundamental substance that flows through all things, animating them with life and consciousness. The school of naturalists, Taoism, and Neo-Confucianism all recognize the importance of qi in understanding the natural world and human experience. They emphasize the interconnectedness of all things, the flow of qi between individuals and the environment, and the importance of cultivating a harmonious relationship with the universal life force. These Eastern philosophical traditions, with their emphasis on interconnectedness, unity, and the underlying consciousness that permeates all of existence, offer rich and diverse perspectives on the concept of anima mundi. They challenge us to expand our understanding of consciousness beyond the individual mind and to recognize the profound connections that exist between all living beings in the cosmos itself. We've embarked on a journey through the ages, tracing the concept of the anima mundi, from its roots in ancient Greece to its expressions in various spiritual and philosophical traditions across the globe. We've explored its manifestations in Platonism, Stoicism, Gnosticism, Manichaeism, Mandeism, Scholasticism, Hermeticism, Judaism, and Eastern philosophies like Hinduism and Taoism. The anima mundi, with its emphasis on the interconnectedness of all things and the presence of a universal consciousness, continues to captivate and inspire thinkers and spiritual seekers alike. It offers a profound perspective on our relationship with the world, inviting us to see ourselves not as isolated individuals, but as an integral part of a greater whole. Whether you resonate with the philosophical arguments, the mystical interpretations, or spiritual implications of the anima mundi, this concept challenges us to expand our understanding of consciousness and our place in the universe. It encourages us to embrace a deeper sense of connection and compassion for all living beings and to recognize the inherent unity of all things. If this exploration has sparked your interest, I encourage you to delve deeper into the rich and diverse traditions that have embraced the concept of the anima mundi. Explore the works of Plato, the Stoics, the Gnostics, and the many other thinkers who have pondered this timeless idea. Consider how the concept of a world soul might inform your own understanding of the universe and your place within it. Remember, the quest for understanding is a continuous journey, and the anima mundi is a concept that invites us to explore the depths of our own consciousness and the interconnectedness of all life. Thank you all for watching. My name's The Big Why. Don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new to the Why Not family, a follow. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Imagine you invent a time machine, a feat that in itself presents numerous hypothetical challenges. Now, let's say you use this time machine and travel back in time. In this scenario, fueled by curiosity or perhaps a desire to fix a past mistake, you end up encountering your own grandfather. However, during this encounter, something unforeseen happens. Maybe you accidentally bump into him, or perhaps your presence alters the course of events, preventing him from meeting your grandmother. Here's where the paradox arises. If your grandfather never meets your grandmother, then your parents wouldn't be born, and consequently, you wouldn't exist. But wait, if you don't exist, how could you have traveled back in time in the first place, setting the chain of events in motion? This seemingly inescapable contradiction is the essence of the grandfather paradox. The concept is credited to French science fiction author René Barjavel, who explored similar themes in his 1943 novel Le Voyageur Imprudent, The Imprudent Traveler. The paradox continues to be a captivating thought experiment, raising questions about the nature of causality, free will, and the potential consequences of manipulating time. It highlights the challenges of comprehending the complexities of time travel and its potential for disrupting the delicate fabric of cause and effect. As we delve deeper into the world of paradoxes, keep in mind paradoxes aren't meant to provide definitive answers. Instead, they serve as powerful tools to stimulate our critical thinking and push the boundaries of our understanding of the world around us. We've all gazed up at the night sky, mesmerized by the twinkling expanse of stars. But have you ever wondered why the sky is dark? It seems like a simple question, but it unveils a profound paradox known as Olber's paradox. Imagine this. If the universe stretches infinitely outward and is uniformly filled with stars, then shouldn't every line of sight eventually bump into a star? In this scenario, regardless of which direction we look, our gaze would land on a star, and the night sky would be ablaze with constant blinding light. This contradicts our reality. The night sky is mostly dark, with stars scattered like scattered diamonds across a vast canvas. So, where's the flaw in our initial assumption? The paradox is named after German astronomer Heinrich Olbers, who formalized the concept in the early 1800s. While the paradox seems to suggest a flaw in our understanding of the universe, it actually led to groundbreaking discoveries. One explanation lies in the finite age of the universe. Light travels at a finite speed. Even the nearest star are millions of light years away. This means that the starlight we see has been traveling for millions of years. Looking out into the cosmos is akin to looking back in time. If the universe is young, we simply haven't had enough time for light from all the distant stars to reach us, leaving vast stretches of darkness. Another factor is the distribution of stars. Stars aren't uniformly scattered throughout space. They tend to clump together in galaxies with vast stretches of emptiness in between. Our own Milky Way galaxy contains billions of stars, but the space between galaxies is largely devoid of them. This clumping explains why we see starry patches in some areas of the night sky and darkness in others. Furthermore, interstellar dust plays a role. Dust particles scattered throughout space can absorb and scatter starlight, further dimming the overall intensity of light reaching us from distant stars. Olber's paradox, despite its seemingly contradictory nature, serves as a powerful example of how scientific paradoxes can push us to reevaluate our assumptions and lead to new discoveries. It highlights the importance of considering factors like the finite speed of light, the distribution of matter in the universe, and the role of interstellar dust in shaping our view of the cosmos. Let's shift gears from the vastness of space to the intricate world of sets. In mathematics, sets are collections of objects or ideas. But what happens when the concept of sets itself leads to a mind-bending contradiction? Enter Russell's paradox. This paradox, formulated by the brilliant mathematician and philosopher Bertrand Russell in 1901, exposed a fundamental flaw in early attempts to axiomatize set theory, which means building a logical foundation for sets. Now imagine a library. This library contains countless books on various subjects. Now consider a special collection within this library, a set of all sets that do not contain themselves. For instance, the set of all red books wouldn't be a part of this special collection because it contains itself, the set of all red books. Does this special set containing sets that don't contain themselves contain itself? If it does contain itself, then it violates its own defining principle. It shouldn't contain sets that contain themselves. But if it doesn't contain itself, then according to its definition, it should be included in the collection since it doesn't contain itself. This seemingly simple question leads to a logical contradiction. Russell's paradox exposed a loophole in how sets were being defined, forcing mathematicians to refine the foundations of set theory. The resolution involved developing more rigorous axiomatic systems for set theory, like Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory, or ZFC, which is widely accepted today. ZFC carefully lays out the rules for how sets can be formed and avoids paradoxes like Russell's. While Russell's paradox might seem like a purely mathematical problem, it highlights the importance of clear definitions and logical consistency in any system of thought. It's a reminder that even seemingly basic concepts can lead to unexpected challenges, prompting us to refine our understanding and strengthen the foundations of knowledge. We've explored paradoxes that challenge our ideas about time, space, and even the foundations of mathematics. Now let's delve into the world of biology with Peto's paradox. This paradox forces us to question our assumptions about cancer risk. Imagine this, a giant blue whale, the largest creature on Earth, and a tiny house mouse. Intuition might lead you to believe the mouse, with its shorter lifespan and fewer cells, has a lower risk of developing cancer. But Peto's paradox flips the script. Named after British epidemiologist Richard Peto, the paradox highlights a surprising observation. Larger animals with trillions more cells than smaller creatures often have a lower lifetime risk of developing cancer. A whale, for instance, can have millions of times more cells than a mouse, yet it appears to experience cancer far less frequently. So what's going on? Why don't these cellular giants succumb to cancer more readily? The answer lies in the complex interplay of several factors. These genes act like cellular bodyguards, constantly monitoring and repairing DNA damage. Some evidence suggests that larger animals might have evolved more efficient tumor suppressor mechanisms, allowing them to quell potential cancerous mutations more effectively. Cancer arises from accumulated mutations during cell division. While a whale has many more cells, it also divides its cells at a slower rate compared to a fast-breeding mouse. This slower rate of cell division translates to fewer opportunities for mutations to occur and progress into cancer. Repairing DNA damage isn't without drawbacks. The repair process itself can introduce errors, and sometimes these errors might contribute to cancer. Larger animals, with slower cell division, might have a more measured approach to DNA repair, minimizing the risk of introducing new errors. Peto's paradox is a powerful reminder that our understanding of cancer is still evolving. Scientists are actively researching the underlying mechanisms that protect larger animals from cancer. This paradox has the potential to unlock new insights into cancer prevention and treatment strategies that could benefit all living beings, regardless of size. By exploring these paradoxes, we see how seemingly contradictory situations can push scientific inquiry forward. Peto's paradox compels us to reevaluate our assumptions about cancer and delve deeper into the fascinating world of cellular life. We've explored paradoxes that bend our minds with time, travel, the vastness of space, and even the nature of sets. Now, let's get philosophical with the Newcomb paradox, a thought experiment that forces us to grapple with choice, destiny, and a cool $1,000,000. Imagine yourself in a unique game with a powerful entity often referred to as a predictor. This predictor can be either omniscient, all-knowing, or just really good at guessing. Here's the deal. You stand before two boxes, a clear one, box A, and a mysterious opaque one, box B. Box A always contains a fixed amount of money, say $100. Box B either has nothing or the same amount as A plus $1,000,000, depending on the predictor's guess about your choice. You don't know if the predictor is all-knowing or just a good guesser, so what do you choose? Here's the dilemma of choice. Choosing box A only guarantees you the $100, regardless of the predictor's abilities. It's a safe bet, but you miss out on a potential million. Now say you choose box B only. This is essentially gambling on the predictor's guess. If the predictor knows you'll choose B and leaves nothing inside, you walk away empty-handed. But if the predictor anticipates you choose B and leaves the million, you win big. The Newcomb paradox lies in the tension between these two options. There's no clear-cut answer and different interpretations exist. There's the stalwart chooser. This view suggests you should always choose B regardless of the predictor's abilities. The logic is that by always choosing B, you force the predictor's hand. Even if the predictor is all-knowing, they can't leave B empty because you'll always choose it, potentially losing them their perfect prediction record. This approach aims to maximize your potential gain. And then there's the skeptical chooser. This view argues that if the predictor is truly all-knowing, your choice won't affect the outcome. They've already determined what's in box B, and your choice is irrelevant. So, you might as well take the guaranteed $100 with box A. The Newcomb paradox goes beyond just the money. It delves into the nature of free will and predestination. Does your choice influence the outcome, or is your fate already sealed by the predictor's knowledge? This paradox sparks lively debates about decision theory and the power of human agency. While there's no definitive answer, it encourages us to critically examine our assumptions about choice and consequence in a world with varying degrees of predictability. Now let's dive into a classic paradox that explores cooperation and betrayal. The prisoner's dilemma. Imagine two criminals, let's call them Ace and Jack, are arrested for the same crime. The authorities, lacking solid evidence, decide to interrogate them separately, offering a deal. If both Ace and Jack confess or defect, they each get a 2-year sentence. If one confesses, defects, while the other one stays silent, cooperates, the narc, the defecting one, goes free, while the silent partner gets a harsh 3-year sentence. Now, if both Ace and Jack refuse to confess and cooperate, they each get a light 1-year sentence. The crux of the prisoner's dilemma lies in the tension between individual gain and collective benefit. Here's why it's a paradox. From an individual standpoint, confessing, or again defecting, seems like the safer bet. You guarantee yourself a lighter sentence, either no time or 2 years, compared to the risk of a harsher sentence, 3 years if your partner betrays you. However, if both Ace and Jack reason this way and defect, they both end up with a 2-year sentence, a worse outcome than if they had cooperated and received only 1 year each. The prisoner's dilemma highlights the conflict between the immediate benefit of securing a lighter sentence by confessing or the advantage of cooperation leading to a better outcome for both parties in the long run. The prisoner's dilemma extends far beyond criminal interrogation. It serves as a model for various real-world scenarios that involve cooperation and competition. Companies might be tempted to undercut each other for short-term gains, but cooperation can lead to a more sustainable market in the long run. Countries might hesitate to implement strict environmental regulations fearing economic drawbacks, but collective action is crucial for a healthier planet. By exploring the prisoner's dilemma, we gain valuable insights into the complexities of cooperation and the importance of considering both individual and collective benefits when making decisions. It's a reminder that sometimes trust and collaboration can lead to better outcomes for everyone involved. Now let's dive into the realm of probability with the Sleeping Beauty problem. This thought experiment forces us to consider memory and its roles in calculating chance. Imagine a young woman, Sleeping Beauty, volunteers for a scientific experiment. Here's the setup. A fair coin is flipped. With heads, Sleeping Beauty is woken up once, asked a question, and then put back to sleep with a memory-erasing drug. On tails, Sleeping Beauty is woken up twice, asked the same question each time, and then put back to sleep with a memory-erasing drug. The key question Sleeping Beauty is asked upon waking is, what is the probability the coin landed heads? Here's the twist. Sleeping Beauty has no memory of being woken up before. So, should she answer based on the single coin flip or consider the number of times she's been woken up? The Sleeping Beauty problem sparks debate among probabilists. Here are the two main perspectives. Number one being the halfer. This view argues that Sleeping Beauty should answer 50%. They reason that the coin flip determining the number of awakenings happens independently of her own awareness. Regardless of how many times she's woken, the coin itself has a 50-50 chance of landing heads. The next perspective is the thirder. This perspective suggests Sleeping Beauty should answer 1/3. Their reasoning is based on her own experience. Since there are two possibilities for tails, waking up twice, and only one for heads, which is waking up once, from her perspective, the chance of the coin landing heads is 1 out of 3 awakenings. The Sleeping Beauty problem highlights the difference between objective and subjective probability. The coin itself has an objective 50-50 chance, but Sleeping Beauty's memory loss creates a subjective experience that alters her perception of the situation. This paradox has sparked philosophical discussions about the nature of knowledge, memory, and the foundation of probability itself. It's a reminder that probability can be influenced by our frame of reference and the information available to us. So the next time you flip a coin, ponder the plight of Sleeping Beauty and the fascinating complexities of chance and subjective experience within the realm of probability. So far, we've explored paradoxes that challenge our ideas about time, space, biology, and even free will. But what if I told you that adding lanes to a highway could actually make traffic worse? That's the mind-bending world of the brace paradox. Imagine you're a driver stuck in rush hour traffic. You see a familiar highway split into 2 routes leading to your destination, Route A and Route B. With Route A, this route is usually congested and slow. It's the one most drivers use out of habit. Now Route B, this route is free-flowing and a breeze to navigate. Sounds like a no-brainer, right? Here's where the brace paradox throws a wrench into our plans. If enough drivers seeking a faster commute decide to use Route B, thinking it'll be less crowded now, the unexpected can happen. The influx of drivers can overload Route B, causing congestion there as well. This can make Route A, the initially slow route, even worse than before. The brace paradox highlights a counterintuitive phenomenon in traffic flow. It demonstrates how individual decisions made with good intentions, like finding a faster route, can lead to unintended consequences, like worsening traffic for everyone. Traffic flow is a complex system. The behavior of individual drivers can have cascading events on the entire network. More lanes don't always equal smoother traffic. Adding lanes can incentivize more drivers to use a route, potentially leading to congestion. The brace paradox applies beyond traffic jams. It's a cautionary tale about unintended consequences and the importance of considering the bigger picture when making decisions within complex systems. It can be relevant to resource allocations, price strategies, and even the design of communication networks. So the next time you're stuck in traffic, remember the brace paradox. It's a reminder that sometimes the seemingly obvious solution might not be the best one. This next paradox plays with logic and sets, presenting a situation that seems impossible. Imagine a quaint village with a single barber known for his excellent shaving skills. Now here's the twist. The barber follows a peculiar rule. He shaves all and only those villagers who don't shave themselves. Sounds straightforward, right? Not quite. The paradox arises when we consider the barber himself. If he shaves himself, then he wouldn't belong to the group of people he shaves. This contradicts his own rule. If he doesn't shave himself, then according to his rule, he falls into the category of people he shaves. By his own definition, he must shave himself. This also contradicts the rule. No matter which option we choose, we end up with the contradiction. The barber can't exist following his own rule. The barber paradox might seem like a playful thought experiment, but it highlights the limitations of certain logical systems, particularly those involving self-referential statements. It demonstrates how seemingly simple rules can lead to unexpected complexities. The barber paradox can be seen as a challenge to naive set theory, where a set can be defined based on any property. In this case, the set of people who don't shave themselves creates a paradox when the barber himself is considered. considered. While seemingly abstract, the Barber paradox has applications in computer science when dealing with self-modifying code or recursive functions. It reminds us to be cautious of circular logic and ensure clear definitions to avoid unexpected outcomes. The Barber paradox, despite its simplicity, serves as a reminder that logic and reasoning can lead to surprising twists and turns. It challenges us to think critically and question even the most basic assumptions. So the next time you get a haircut, ponder the plight of the paradoxical barber and the fascinating world of logical puzzles. Our journey through mind-bending thought experiments continues with the classic head-scratcher, the Achilles and the tortoise paradox. This ancient paradox, attributed to the Greek philosopher Zeno, challenges our intuition about motion and infinity. Imagine a foot race between the swift Achilles and the slow but determined tortoise. To give the tortoise a fighting chance, Achilles generously grants him a head start. The question is, can Achilles overtake the tortoise? Here's where things get tricky. Let's break it down logically. To catch the tortoise, Achilles must first reach the point where the tortoise started. By the time Achilles gets there, the tortoise has moved a bit further ahead. So Achilles must now cover that additional distance. This process can be repeated infinitely. Achilles must always cover the remaining distance between him and the tortoise, which seems to shrink but never disappears. According to this logic, Achilles seems destined to be stuck in an infinite loop, constantly closing the gap but never reaching the tortoise. Does this mean the slower runner wins by default? The Achilles and the tortoise paradox highlights the counterintuitive nature of infinite divisibility. It forces us to question how something can be infinitely divided and how a sum of infinitely many infinitesimal distances can be a finite distance that Achilles can actually traverse. While the paradox seems to suggest Achilles is doomed to an eternal chase, mathematicians have developed tools like calculus to deal with infinite sums and address the paradox more rigorously. The Achilles and the tortoise paradox is just one of the multifaceted, stemming from a combination of psychological, social, and historical factors. Personal experiences of failure, trauma, or loss can contribute to a defeatist mindset. Negative social messages, cultural norms that discourage optimism, and historical events that have instilled a sense of hopelessness can also play a role. Defeatism is often associated with pessimism, a tendency to focus on negative outcomes and expect the worst. It can also be linked to fatalism, the belief that events are predetermined and that individual actions are powerless to change the course of destiny. The consequences of defeatism can be devastating. It can lead to missed opportunities, unfulfilled potential, and a general sense of stagnation and despair. In extreme cases, it can even contribute to mental health issues like depression and anxiety. However, defeatism is not an inevitable state. By understanding its causes and manifestations, we can develop strategies to counteract it and cultivate a more resilient and optimistic outlook. We can challenge negative thoughts, focus on our strengths and successes, and seek support from others who believe in our potential. We can also learn from the experiences of those who have overcome adversity, drawing inspiration from their courage and determination. By confronting the challenges of defeatism, we can empower ourselves and others to face life's obstacles with resilience, hope, and a renewed belief in the possibility of overcoming even the most daunting challenges. And who knows? Perhaps by embracing a more optimistic outlook, we can not only transform our own lives, but also inspire positive change in the world around us. The term defeatism has a long and complex history, often used in political and military contexts with negative connotations. In the political arena, defeatism is commonly associated with the perceived willingness to cooperate with the opposition party, often seen as a betrayal of one's own political ideals or goals. This can lead to accusations of disloyalty and a weakening of political unity. In the military context, particularly during wartime and on the front lines, defeatism is considered a grave offense, often equated with treason. Soldiers who express doubts about the validity of national policy or the likelihood of victory can be accused of being defeatist. This can lead to severe consequences, as such sentiments can undermine morale, hinder military operations, and even compromise national security. Under military law, defeatism can encompass a range of behaviors, from refusing to fight to openly questioning the war effort. Existential questions like, is the war already lost, or is the fight worth the effort, can be interpreted as defeatist if they are seen as promoting an alternative to military victory. The historical use of defeatism in a pejorative label highlights the importance of maintaining a unified front in times of conflict. It also reveals the tension between individual conscience and a collective responsibility, as individuals may grapple with their own doubts and anxieties while facing pressure to conform to the dominant narrative and support the war effort. While the term defeatism has negative connotations, it's important to recognize that questioning the dissent are not always detrimental. In some cases, they can lead to critical reevaluation of strategies, expose flaws in decision-making, and ultimately contribute to a more successful outcome. However, in the context of war and conflict where morale and unity are crucial, defeatism can be seen as a threat to national security and a betrayal of the collective effort. This complex and multifaceted history of the term defeatism reflects the delicate balance between individual freedom of thought and the need for collective action in times of crisis. The concept of defeatism took on a sinister dimension in Nazi Germany, where it became a tool for political repression and control. Following Germany's defeat in World War I, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party capitalized on the widespread disillusionment and frustration, blaming the loss on a defeatist mentality that had supposedly undermined the war effort. After the Nazis seized power, Hitler's obsession with denouncing opponents as defeatist intensified. This label was used to silence dissent, discredit political rivals, and create a climate of fear and paranoia. During World War II, Hitler's paranoia reached new heights, leading him to unexpectedly dismiss numerous generals for alleged defeatism, even when their assessments of the military situation were realistic and grounded in evidence. This created a culture of sycophancy and self-censorship among military leaders who felt compelled to present overly optimistic reports to avoid being labeled as defeatist and facing dire consequences. In the final year of the war, as the tide turned against Germany, the Nazi regime intensified its crackdown on dissent. The People's Court, a kangaroo court established by the Nazis, sentenced numerous individuals to death for alleged defeatist talk or actions. Their names were publicly displayed on pink posters, a chilling reminder of the consequences of challenging the regime's narrative. Even as the Red Army approached Berlin in 1945, Nazi officials desperately tried to suppress cowardice and defeatism within their own ranks, resorting to summary executions to maintain control and prevent any potential uprising. The Nazi regime's manipulation of the term defeatism highlights the dangers of suppressing dissent and critical thinking. By labeling any opposition or realistic assessments as defeatism, they created an environment where fear and conformity reigned supreme, ultimately contributing to their own downfall. The concept of defeatism has also been applied to revolutionary movements, particularly in the context of Marxist thought. Revolutionary defeatism, a concept championed by Vladimir Lenin during World War I, argues that the working class cannot truly win or gain anything from a capitalist war. According to Lenin, the real enemy of the working class is not the opposing nation, but their own capitalist leaders who send the working class to fight and die in wars that serve their own interests. He believed that the working class would benefit more from their own nation's defeat, as it could potentially spark a revolution and lead to the overthrow of the capitalist system. Lenin's revolutionary defeatism was a controversial and divisive stance, even within the socialist movement. It has been seen by some as a call for treason and a betrayal of national interests, while others viewed it as a strategic move to advance the cause of the working class. Another example of the debate surrounding defeatism with revolutionary movements can be found in the works of Leon Trotsky. His theory of permanent revolution, which advocated for continuous revolutionary struggle until socialism was achieved globally, was misrepresented by Stalin as defeatist and adventurists. In reality, Trotsky's theory was not about promoting reckless confrontations with capitalist powers, but rather encouraging revolutions in Europe and other parts of the world to create a global socialist movement. This misrepresentation of Trotsky's views highlights the political complexities and ideological struggles within revolutionary movements and the potential for the term defeatism to be used as a weapon to discredit and marginalize dissenting voices. We ventured into the depths of defeatism, exploring its historical roots, its psychological complexities, and its manifestations in various aspects of life. We've examined the dangers of succumbing to despair and the power of hope, resilience, and the unwavering belief in the possibility of overcoming challenges. Defeatism, while a natural human response to adversity, can be a self-fulfilling prophecy, hindering our ability to strive for our goals and achieve our full potential. By understanding its causes and manifestations, we can learn to recognize the signs of defeatism in ourselves and others and take steps to counteract it. If this exploration has resonated with you, I encourage you to delve deeper into the research of resilience, optimism, and the power of the human spirit to overcome adversity. Explore the stories of individuals who have triumphed over seemingly insurmountable challenges and consider how their experiences can inspire and empower you in your own journey. And who knows, perhaps by embracing a mindset of resilience and unwavering hope, you can become a beacon of positivity and strength for others, inspiring them to overcome their own doubts and fears. The power to triumph over defeat lies within each of us, waiting to be awakened and unleashed. Thank you everyone for watching. My name's The Big Why. Don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new to the Why Not family, a follow. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. To wonder, do animals dream too? Then again, humans actually dream during non-REM sleep as well. The tricky part about studying dreams is that we rely on people telling us about them afterwards. Studying animal dreams, or even dreams of infants too young to speak, is a fascinating challenge as we can't directly access that experience. Amazingly, how people dream seems to have changed throughout history. Ancient Mediterranean writings reveal a sudden shift between the Bronze Age and the Classical era. Back then, dreaming visitation was the norm. People dreamed of gods or ancestors delivering commands, focusing mainly on what was heard, not seen. An example is Gudea, a Sumerian king. He rebuilt an entire temple after a dream told him to. But after this period, dreams became more personal. They had visual narratives, and the dreamer was an active character, not just a listener. This transformation in how dreams are experienced is a huge mystery, but dream research continues. In the 1940s, Calvin S. Hall began a massive project, collecting over 50,000 dream reports. His research, along with later studies, shows an amazing consistency in what people dream about across cultures. Interestingly, the only leftover of that ancient style of dream authority figure might be how often God features in dreams, regardless of the dreamer's own beliefs. Diving into the content of dreams, Calvin Hall's research reveals that anxiety is the most common emotion we feel while dreaming. Fear, anger, and even abandonment also feature heavily. Turns out, bad dreams are far more common than pleasant ones. Speaking of topics that get people curious, sex doesn't dominate dreams as much as you might think. Studies show sexual dreams usually make up less than 10% of all dreams, even in teenagers. That said, they do occasionally result in orgasm, the so-called wet dream. The visual side of dreams is usually incredibly strange, a swirling mix of memories that don't always make sense. Conversations in dreams often become utterly bizarre as well. However, sometimes dreams weave complex stories and leave us with new ideas or feelings we can't quite explain. Interestingly, people blind from birth don't experience visuals in their dreams. They still dream, but through their other senses: sound, touch, smell, and taste. This raises the question, are dreams fundamentally visual, or does our brain simply use the tools it has? Scientists are passionate about understanding how dreams work, especially how our minds and our brains produce them. It sounds easy, right? Just peek inside a brain while someone's dreaming, but there's a problem. Current research methods create roadblocks. In most places, scientists can't do highly invasive research on healthy humans. Studying the brain with something like an EEG just shows broad activity patterns, not the tiny details of what's firing during a dream. Animal studies might seem like the answer, but since we can't ask a dog if it dreamt about chasing squirrels, this research has limits too. Even studying people with brain injuries only tells part of the story. This leaves dream researchers in a frustrating place. The phenomenon they're chasing is both powerful and incredibly delicate. It's happening inside our heads, yet so much about it remains untouchable with current scientific tools. Scientists crave precision when studying dreams, but sadly, their tools aren't always a perfect fit. Brain imaging studies give us clues. They might highlight a region lighting up when someone dreams, but that doesn't mean that spot is the sole source of dreams. Think of it like listening to an orchestra. Many instruments play at once to create music. Dreams likely involve a whole network of brain areas, and it might change from dream to dream. Even the visual aspect of dreams, while vivid, probably involves less brain power than when you're actually seeing things. It's like your brain replaying memories on shuffle. But what about the story of our dreams? That's where things get really strange. Scientists like Gazzaniga and Ledoux came up with the idea of a left brain interpreter. This part of our brain wants things to make sense, so it takes random signals it gets during sleep and weaves them into a narrative, however nonsensical that narrative might be. This is why dreams are often so confusing. Your brain is just trying to stitch together scraps. Think of it like your brain playing a game of broken telephone with itself. Neuroscientist Indre Viscontis says it bluntly: those wild dreams are basically your brain trying to create a story from random noise. While science wrestles with how dreams work, there's an even bigger question. Why do we dream at all? For centuries, many cultures believed dreams were messages from gods or spirits, revealing hidden truths. Ancient Egyptians even had dream temples where people would try to deliberately receive divine guidance through their sleep. But what if the purpose of dreams isn't mystical but biological? Back in the 1800s, Dr. Robert had a theory. Dreams are our brain's way of clearing out extra information collected during the day. He thought dreams either erase the clutter or store the important bits in our memory. Freud, known for his analysis of dreams, took a different angle. He He believed dreams protect our sleep by letting us act out desires we can fulfill while awake. Think of them as a mental safety valve, letting off steam so we can sleep undisturbed. The discovery of REM sleep in 1953 was a game changer for dream science. Now we knew with much more certainty when most vivid dreaming occurred. But while many studies since then claim to explore the purpose of dreams, some were, in reality, studying REM sleep as a whole, not dreaming itself. So let's dive into a few theories that emerged after we understood REM. Hobson and McCarley's activation synthesis. This theory suggests dreams are our brain trying to make sense of random signals firing during sleep. There might be a learning connection here, which some Harvard research supports. Then there's Crick and Mitchinson's reverse learning. This one's a bit sci-fi sounding. They believe dreams are our brain deleting unnecessary connections and mental clutter, like a computer defragging itself. Then there's the Hartman's quasi-therapeutic approach, where dreams become a safe space to process emotions, especially difficult ones. This might be why nightmares exist, despite feeling terrible. And then there's Reverend Suo's threat simulation. This theory goes way back. What if dreams evolved to help our ancestors practice reacting to danger? They'd be less likely to freeze up in a real-life crisis. His most recent idea is about social simulation theory, using dreams to practice interactions and strengthen relationships. And then there's Eagleman and Vaughn's defensive activation theory, where dreams might be a screensaver for the visual part of our brain. Keeping it busy during sleep could prevent it from being taken over by other senses. And then there's Eric Hull's overfitting prevention. Based on how artificial brains work, Hull suggests dreams help us avoid getting stuck in old patterns by introducing random scenarios. This keeps us adaptable. Dreams aren't just a scientific puzzle. They have spiritual significance across many cultures and religions. Some scholars even believe the very idea of a soul, a part of us that exists beyond the physical body, came from our ancestors trying to make sense of their dreams. J.W. Dunn, a thinker exploring time and consciousness, had this idea. He felt primitive humans would wake from vivid dreams and feel as if they'd literally traveled to another world while their bodies slept. This concept of a separate dreaming self became the foundation for many understandings of the human spirit. Let's explore the Hindu perspective on dreams. In the ancient writings of the Mandukya Upanishad, dreams are one of the three main states of existence, alongside waking and deep sleep. The Talmud, a central Jewish text, contains extensive discussions on dreams. Ancient Hebrews, while strictly monotheistic, the Hebrews strongly connected dreams to their faith. Dreams are either sent by God or by evil spirits, and dream incubation to seek divine guidance was practiced. Prophets like Samuel and Joseph are known for receiving messages and interpreting dreams, even for leaders outside their religion. Christians largely adopted the views of the Hebrews, seeing dreams as potentially divine. The story of Jacob's ladder is a powerful example. Even today, many Christians believe God can speak through dreams. According to scholar R. Edgar, dreams hold a vital place in Islam. With Muhammad considered the last prophet, dream interpretation became the main avenue for potential direct revelation from God. Muslims distinguish between true dreams, false ones inspired by the devil, and everyday dreams linked to the one's ego and life experiences. Hadith tradition emphasizes that true dreams are clear and meaningful, mirroring aspects of prophecy. Now let's explore Buddhist beliefs about dreams. They share several similarities with other traditions from the same region. In Buddhism, occasionally the same dream is experienced by multiple people, like when those close to Buddha had dreams foreshadowing him leaving his home. This suggests a potential collective aspect to dreaming. Buddhist texts also speak of dreams that transcend time itself. Future Buddhas are thought to have recurring dreams mirroring those of past Buddhas. In their literature, dreams often act as signposts in a person's life journey, marking key transitions. The Pali commentaries and the Milinda Panha offer further insights into specific Buddhist viewpoints on dreams. In ancient China, they believed in two aspects of the soul, one venturing out in dreams, the other remaining in the body. But philosophers, even long ago, questioned these beliefs. For Babylonians and Assyrians, dreams were divided into those sent by gods and those sent by demons. Dream omens were compiled to predict what would befall a person based on what they dreamt. In ancient Greece, early beliefs had gods physically visiting sleepers, evolving into the idea of souls leaving the body. Morpheus, god of dreams, sent both warnings and prophecies. Antiphon wrote an early text on dream interpretation, and renowned thinkers like Hippocrates used dreams for medical diagnosis. Even then, there was a debate. Did dreams reveal hidden desires as Plato thought, or were they physiological leftovers like Aristotle suggested? Let's not forget Cicero, who attributed dreams to lingering daytime thoughts. The indigenous Australians, whose dreaming concept intertwines dreams with creation myths, and Native American and Mexican groups who believe dreams offer a connection to ancestors. In the late 19th century, Sigmund Freud burst onto the scene with his groundbreaking ideas about dreams. He theorized that they were our unconscious mind's way of expressing itself, particularly in fulfilling hidden desires, often linked to childhood experiences. experiences. Carl Jung and others built upon this foundation, expanding the idea that dreams tap into our unconscious. Interestingly, many people still believe this today. Studies show most people feel dreams reveal deep hidden truths about themselves. They even trust these insights more than similar thoughts that they have while awake, and are influenced by the emotional tone of a dream and how they interpret it. Here's where things get a little murky. Some swear their dreams predict the future. However, psychologists point to memory bias. We tend to remember the dreams that seem to come true and forget the ones that don't. Plus, dreams are often vague and symbolic, making it easy to connect them to real life after the fact. This idea of veridical dreams, those with information the dreamer shouldn't know, is fascinating. Experiments with dream journaling show the predictive power drops once we prevent selective memory. Even given a fake diary with some accurate dream predictions, people remember those more strongly, showing our bias towards believing in the mystical side of dreams. The mysterious, evocative nature of dreams has inspired artists for centuries. In Western Renaissance and Baroque works, dreams often linked to biblical tales, like Jacob's Ladder or the dreams in the Gospel of Matthew. Later on, dreams appeared in the work of Hokusai, known for his Japanese woodblock prints, and visionary European artists like Rousseau, Picasso, and Surrealist master Dali. Literature overflows with dream imagery too. Medieval allegories use dreams to frame their stories, like Shakur's The Book of the Duchess or The Vision concerning Piers Plowman. And who can forget Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and its sequel, where dream logic reigns supreme. Fantasy and sci-fi continue this tradition. H.P. Lovecraft's dream cycle invites us into terrifying dreamscapes, while the never-ending story has realms like Desert of Lost Dreams. Authors like Philip K. Dick and Jorge Luis Borges blur the line between dreaming and reality, questioning what is real. Pop culture carries on this fascination, often echoing Freud's idea that dreams reveal what we hide, even from ourselves. Think of films like Dreamscape, Inception, or the Nightmare on Elm Street series, where the line between dream and walking life is razor thin. Now let's get mind-bending. Lucid dreaming is when you're aware you're dreaming while you're still asleep. It's like waking up inside your dream. Some lucid dreamers even report being able to control elements of the dream, what happens, and who's there. The ability to do this can be developed with practice. The term onironaut refers to someone who frequently explores this state, an adventurer of the inner world. Lucid dreaming may sound like science fiction, but it's been scientifically verified. In 1975, a dreamer signaled that they were lucid dreaming by moving their eyes in a prearranged pattern. Later experiments by Stephen LeBerg went even further. He explored how time feels within dreams compared to waking life by using eye signals. He compared brain activity while singing awake versus singing in a dream. He even studied sex and orgasm within the dream state. Believe it or not, communication between two lucid dreamers has even been achieved. They used EEG monitoring to pinpoint when they were both dreaming, then sent signals incorporated into the dreams themselves. Most people have a spotty relationship with remembering their dreams. Science confirms those faded snippets are just the tip of the iceberg. However, our ability to recall dreams can be improved. Waking up during REM sleep when most vivid dreaming occurs greatly increases the chance of remembering. Women tend to have better dream recall than men overall. But what makes some dreams stick in our minds while others vanish? The salience hypothesis suggests that the more novel, intense, or unusual a dream is, the more likely we are to remember it. This is why vivid or bizarre dreams are often what gets recalled. Interestingly, having a dream journal can help, not just for the obvious reason of recording dreams, but because it trains your mind to pay attention to these fleeting experiences. Personality plays into it too. Adults typically recall about 2 dreams a week. Those who experience more unusual things during the day also tend to have more intense, interesting dreams and recall them better. Creative, imaginative people who daydream or are prone to fantasy experiences are more likely to be good at remembering their dreams. There's even some evidence that those who experience more bizarre things when awake, like those scoring high for schizotypy, also report more frequent nightmares alongside more dream recall in general. Could we one day have a true dream recording machine? It sounds fantastical, but the idea is being explored by scientists right now. Using fMRI and tools that read muscle activity, researchers have begun to identify basic patterns related to things we see, say, or do within our dreams. This technology is young, and who knows if we'll ever get a full-on dream movie stored inside our phones. But even the possibility of better understanding our dreams, and maybe even improving our ability to remember them, is incredibly exciting. Scientists puzzle over the nature of dreams and if we might one day record them or even manipulate them. But there's an even wilder question some philosophers ask. What if the world we consider real is itself a kind of dream? This idea, known as skeptical hypothesis, has been explored since ancient times. The Chinese philosopher Zhang famously asked, "He who dreams of drinking wine may weep when morning comes. He who dreams of weeping may in the morning go off to hunt. While he is dreaming, he does not know it is a dream. Only after he wakes does he know it was a dream." Zhang suggests that someday we might all have a great awakening, realizing our current lives are but a dream. He adds with a touch of humor, even if someone could explain the truth to us, we'd still be dreaming and unable to comprehend. Similar ideas appear in Buddhist and Hindu texts. It was only in the 17th century that Western philosophy tackled it formally, thanks to Descartes' meditations on first philosophy. Scientists puzzle over why we dream, but some theories offer compelling possibilities. Let's look at a strange type of dream that might give us a clue. Dreams of absent-minded transgression, or DAMTs, occur when dreamers do something they're consciously trying to stop. A classic example is a person quitting smoking, dreaming of lighting up anyway. Waking from these dreams, people often feel intense guilt. Oddly enough, there's evidence that DAMTs aren't just a sign of failure. They might actually be our brain's way of working through the act of quitting. Studies show those who experience these dreams are more likely to succeed in breaking the habit. This hints at possible purposes of dreams. They let us rehearse challenges, practice self-control, and maybe even make subconscious changes to our behavior, all in a safe space while we sleep. Most people think of dreaming as something that happens only during deep sleep. But the truth is more complex. We have shorter, less elaborate dreamlike experiences in other sleep stages. Hypnagogic dreams occur as you're drifting off to sleep. You might see flashes of imagery or hear sounds that don't exist. They feel like the very edge of dreaming. Hypnopompic dreams are the opposite of hypnagogic dreams. These happen as you're waking up, often blending with the real world in a strange, sometimes disorienting ways. And then there's stage 2 NREM dreams. NREM is the less vivid stage of sleep. Dreams here are shorter and more thought-like than full-blown narratives we commonly think of as dreams. Dreams aren't just for nighttime. Daydreams are those waking fantasies where our mind wanders, picturing pleasant things, ambitions, or simply drifting into a stare of pleasant distraction. Interestingly, there's no single definition of a daydream. For some, it's incredibly vivid, almost like dreaming with your eyes open. Others use the term more loosely for simple thoughts about the future, reliving memories, or even just zoning out entirely. While often dismissed as laziness, daydreams can be surprisingly productive. Many creative people, artists, writers, even scientists, credit daydreaming as a source of their best ideas. It seems allowing the mind to wander and simply play without purpose can occasionally lead to unexpected breakthroughs. Now, dreams are different than hallucinations, the latter being vivid experiences that feel real despite no actual external stimulus. While dreams and hallucinations can both create bizarre experiences, there's a key difference. Dreams happen while you're asleep, meaning we aren't consciously awake. Hallucinations occur while we're awake and seem just as real as any other perception we have of the world around us, even though they have no basis in reality. Most people have had a nightmare at some point, those terrifying dreams that jolt you awake, heart pounding and filled with a sense of dread. While dreams can be strange and funny, nightmares hit us with a primal level. They trigger raw emotions, fear, horror, despair, and deep sadness. Unlike a normal dream that fades quickly, nightmares leave us shaken, sometimes making it impossible to fall back asleep. This raises a question for scientists. If a dream have a purpose, why do we need something so unpleasant? Now, it's easy to confuse nightmares with another, even more disturbing sleep phenomenon, the night terror. While both are upsetting, they're very different. Now, nightmares are bad dreams during normal sleep. They can be scary, but upon waking, the person usually remembers the dream and feels aware of being back in their own bed. Night terrors are intense episodes that occur during sleep and usually involve signs of panic like screaming, kicking, or thrashing. Oddly, the person won't remember the event afterward and might be very difficult to rouse. Night terrors are more common in children. Déjà vu, that uncanny feeling of having lived a moment before, is another puzzle scientists haven't fully solved. But one theory offers a potential link to dreams. Perhaps we sometimes dream of situations that are similar to things we encounter later in our waking life. The dream is forgotten, but when the real-life event happens, something in our brain makes a faulty connection, creating that feeling of familiarity. It's a bit like seeing something and vaguely feeling like you recognize it, even though you know you've never encountered it before. This theory implies our dream memories might be influencing our waking perception somehow. We're all fascinated by dreams. The mysteries they hold might seem impossible to solve. But remember, many of science's greatest discoveries started with a simple question, a spark of curiosity. We now understand things that baffled the greatest minds of the past. So, if you're someone whose head swirls with questions late at night, someone who ponders the strange stories your mind creates while you sleep, don't dismiss those thoughts. Perhaps you will be the one to unravel dreams, to discover why our minds embark on these journeys each night. The next great discovery about the human mind might just be lurking within one of your own dreams. Thank you everyone for watching. My name's The Big Y. Don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new to the Why Not family, a follow. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Because areas like your fingertips have a higher concentration of temperature receptors. Furthermore, touch has limitations in what it can perceive. We can feel the texture and temperature of an object, but not its internal structure or composition. To understand the makeup of a rock, for instance, we need instruments that can analyze its material properties beyond what our fingertips can detect. Despite these limitations, touch plays a vital role in our understanding of the world. It allows us to navigate our environment, interact with objects, and experience physical sensations. However, it's important to remember that touch, like sight, provides just one piece of the puzzle. Next up is taste. Those tiny bumps on our tongue called taste buds are responsible for detecting the 5 basic tastes: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and savory, by the way, which is also called umami. But just like sight and touch, taste has its limitations. First off, taste perception varies greatly between individuals. Genetic differences can affect the number and type of taste receptors on our tongues. This explains why some people find cilantro soapy tasting, while others enjoy its citrusy notes. Second off, taste is heavily influenced by smell. The combined information from our olfactory receptors in the nose and taste buds on the tongue creates the full flavor experience. That's why food often tastes bland when you have a stuffy nose. Finally, taste can be easily tricked. Certain substances can alter our perception of taste. For instance, the coolness of mint can mask the spiciness of chili peppers. Food presentation and our expectations can also influence taste. A beautifully plated dish might taste more delicious than the same food served on a plain plate. Despite these limitations, taste plays a crucial role in our survival. It helps us distinguish between nutritious and potentially harmful foods. Bitter tastes often indicate the presence of toxins, while sweet flavors can signal the presence of energy-rich carbohydrates. Now let's dive into the fascinating world of smell. Our noses, equipped with millions of olfactory receptors, detect a vast array of odors, playing a significant role in taste perception and even triggering memories. But even this powerful sense has its limitations. Similar to taste, smell can be subjective. Genetic variations influence how individuals perceive certain odors. For example, some people might find the scent of a rose intoxicating, while others might find it overpowering. These variations depend on the types and numbers of olfactory receptors a person possesses. Furthermore, our sense of smell can be easily fatigued or overwhelmed. Exposure to a strong odor for an extended period can desensitize our olfactory receptors, making it difficult to detect other smells. This is why walking into a bakery after being outside might make all the pastries smell the same. Additionally, external factors can significantly impact our sense of smell. A stuffy nose due to allergies or a cold can drastically reduce our ability to detect odors. This explains why food often tastes bland when you're congested. Despite these limitations, smell plays a vital role in our lives. It helps us avoid dangers like spoiled food or gas leaks. It also plays a crucial role in emotional responses and memory formation. The scent of freshly baked cookies might bring back warm childhood memories. Now, let's go over hearing. Our ears are marvels of engineering, translating vibrations in the air into sound waves that we interpret as music, speech, and the symphony of the world around us. But even this sophisticated system has its limits. First off, there's a range of audible frequencies. Just like sight has a visible spectrum, hearing has an audible spectrum. We can hear sounds within a certain range of frequencies, typically between 20 Hz and 20,000 Hz. Sound below this range, called infrasound, are inaudible to us, while sounds above it, called ultrasound, escape our detection. This limited range means we miss out on a whole world of sounds. Elephants communicate using infrasound, inaudible to human ears, whereas dogs can hear high-pitched whistles beyond our range. Second off, hearing acuity, or the sharpness of hearing, deteriorates with age. Exposure to loud noises can also damage our hair cells in the ear, leading to hearing loss. This explains why some people struggle to hear conversations in noisy environments or need hearing aids later in life. Finally, our perception of sound can be influenced by our expectations and surroundings. A faint ticking sound might seem much louder at night when everything else is quiet. Likewise, background noise can mask or distort sounds, making it difficult to focus on specific conversations in a crowded room. Despite these limitations, hearing plays a fundamental role in our lives. It allows us to communicate with others, appreciate music and soundscapes, and even navigate our environment through echolocation, a technique used by some people who are blind or visually impaired. We've explored the limitations of our senses, those incredible tools that paint a picture of the world around us. But the real interpretation of that picture happens inside our skulls, in the most complex organ we possess, the brain. However, even this marvel of evolution has its limits when it comes to acquiring knowledge. Our brains are processing powerhouses, constantly receiving information, making connections, and forming memories, but they have a finite capacity. This makes it challenging to grasp complex concepts, especially those involving vast scales or abstract ideas. Now let's explore the role of experience, the cornerstone of our individual understanding of the world. Our experiences from childhood adventures to daily interactions shape our knowledge base, but experiences, like all things, come with their own set of limitations. Firstly, experiences can be biased. Our upbringing, cultural background, and personal beliefs can color how we perceive and interpret the world. For instance, someone who grew up eating mostly meat might find vegetarian dishes strange or unappetizing, while someone raised on a plant-based diet might have the opposite reaction. Secondly, experiences can be incomplete. We can only experience a small fraction of the world around us. Our personal journeys limit our exposure to different cultures, environments, and perspectives. Imagine trying to understand global climate change based solely on your experiences in a single location. You wouldn't get the full picture. These limitations can lead to misunderstandings and skewed knowledge. However, by acknowledging the limitations of our experiences, we can become more open-minded and receptive to the experiences of others. Through travel, education, and open communication, we can broaden our knowledge base and develop a more holistic understanding of the world. Now let's delve into the very tools we use to build knowledge in the face of these limitations: scientific theories and evidence. Science relies on a powerful duo, theories and evidence. Theories are not mere guesses, but well-substantiated explanations of natural phenomena, built upon years of observation and experimentation. They provide a framework for understanding the world around us, from the behavior of atoms to the vastness of galaxies. However, a scientific theory is never truly proven. It's constantly tested and refined. New evidence can challenge existing theories, leading to revisions or even the development of entirely new explanations. Think about the theory of plate tectonics. This theory, which explains the movement of Earth's continents, wasn't always widely accepted. But as scientists gathered more evidence, like the fit of continents and the presence of matching fossils on opposite sides of the ocean, the theory gained traction. The quest for evidence is the driving force of scientific progress. Scientists use a variety of tools to gather evidence, from powerful telescopes peering into the depths of space to intricate microscopes exploring the building blocks of life. Now let's delve into the philosophical realm and explore a theory that questions the very nature of knowledge itself, the representational theory. This theory proposes that our understanding of the world is entirely built upon the information we receive through our senses: sight, touch, smell, taste, and hearing. These are the gateways through which we gather information, and our brains construct a mental representation of reality. But what about things that exist beyond the reach of our senses? Imagine dark matter, the mysterious substance thought to comprise most of the matter in the universe. We can't see it, touch it, or interact with it directly. According to the representational theory, our knowledge of dark matter is limited to the direct evidence we can gather through instruments and scientific models. The origin of the universe presents another fascinating challenge. The Big Bang Theory proposes a moment of creation, but the conditions at that time were far beyond anything our senses could experience. Our understanding relies on complex mathematical models and simulations attempting to recreate a reality we can never directly perceive. The representational theory doesn't suggest we're stuck in a world of illusion. Science has developed powerful tools to extend our senses and gather data beyond our immediate perception. But it does remind us that our knowledge is always an interpretation, a mental representation built upon the limited information our senses provide. Next, we delve into another philosophical debate that has been around for centuries: a priori versus a posteriori knowledge. This debate centers on the fundamental question: where does knowledge come from? Is some knowledge innate, pre-wired into our brains, which is known as a priori, or is all knowledge acquired through experience, a posteriori? Those who believe in a priori knowledge argue that certain truths are self-evident and don't require experience to grasp. For example, the statement, "a bachelor is unmarried," seems true by definition, regardless of whether you've ever met a bachelor. However, those on the a posteriori side argue that all knowledge ultimately stems from experience. Even seemingly self-evident truths rely on our ability to perceive and interact with the world. Without the concept of marriage, the idea of being unmarried wouldn't exist. The limitations of our experience become especially relevant when considering a posteriori knowledge. If all knowledge comes from experience, then what we haven't experienced limits what we can know. Imagine trying to understand the vastness of space or the intricate world of subatomic particles without the benefit of scientific instruments. The a priori versus a posteriori debate highlights the complex relationship between our innate abilities and the world around us. It's likely a combination of both that shapes our understanding. Now let's delve into a theory that shatters assumptions about reality itself. The simulation theory. This mind-bending theory proposes that our entire perceived reality, from the vast cosmos to the blades of grass beneath our feet, might be nothing more than an elaborate computer simulation. Imagine a world so advanced, so meticulously crafted, that it's indistinguishable from what we call reality. The simulation theory raises profound questions. Who created the simulation? What is its purpose? Are we merely characters in a vast digital game, unaware of the true nature of our existence? While the theory may seem like science fiction, it has gained traction among some philosophers and scientists. The rapid advancements in computing power and virtual reality technology make the idea of simulated reality seem less outlandish. However, the simulation theory, by its very nature, is difficult to prove or disprove. If we are indeed living in a simulation, the very laws of physics and the nature of reality itself could be designed to keep us from ever truly knowing. Despite its speculative nature, the simulation theory offers a thought-provoking exploration of the limits of human knowledge. It reminds us that our understanding of reality might be far more limited than we imagine. Before we continue with our theories, let's go over language, the very tool we're using to explore these limitations. Language allows us to communicate ideas, share knowledge, and build understanding. But even this powerful tool has its constraints. Language shapes how we perceive the world. The words we have available influence the concepts we can form. For instance, some cultures have multiple words for different types of snow, reflecting their close observation of winter conditions. In contrast, someone from a warmer climate may only have one word for snow, limiting their ability to differentiate its various forms. Language can also be ambiguous. Words can have multiple meanings, leading to misunderstandings. This is especially true when discussing complex scientific concepts or abstract ideas. Imagine trying to explain the theory of relativity using only everyday language. It becomes a challenging task. Furthermore, language is constantly evolving. New words are created and old ones take on new meanings. This can make it difficult to understand historical texts or even conversations across generations. Imagine trying to decipher slang used in old movies or text messages from your grandparents. Despite these limitations, language remains a powerful tool for acquiring and sharing knowledge. By being aware of its limitations, we can choose our words carefully and strive for clear communication. The development of new scientific terminology and technical language allows us to express complex ideas with greater precision. With that being said, we're now going to dive into a theory that proposes language isn't just a tool for communication, but a shaper of thought. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. This hypothesis, named after linguist Edward Sapir and Benjamin Whorf, suggests that the language we speak influences how we perceive and categorize the world around us. The words available to us shape the concepts we can form. For example, a language with the single word for snow might limit the speaker's ability to differentiate between powdery and packed snow. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis goes beyond concrete objects. It suggests language can even influence how we perceive time, color, or emotions. Cultures with multiple words for different shades of blue might have a more nuanced perception of color compared to cultures with fewer color terms. However, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis is a complex and debated theory. While language undoubtedly influences our thinking, it's not entirely deterministic. We can still grasp concepts for which we don't have specific words. Learning a new language can also broaden our perception and understanding of the world. Despite its limitations, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis offers a valuable insight into the relationship between language and thought. It reminds us that our understanding of the world is shaped not just by objective reality, but also by the linguistic lens through which we experience it. Imagine trying to comprehend the sheer immensity of geological time. Our brains are accustomed to the human lifespan, a mere blip in the grand scheme of things. Grasping the concept of millions, even billions of years, become an abstract exercise, pushing the boundaries of our cognitive abilities. And then there's the world of mathematics. Complex equations and abstract concepts can push the limits of our brain's processing power. Understanding the elegance of calculus or the intricacies of quantum mechanics can feel like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. These limitations don't mean we're doomed to ignorance. Science has developed tools to help us overcome them. Telescopes and microscopes extend our perception beyond the limitations of our senses. Models and simulations can help us visualize complex systems, and mathematics itself becomes a powerful language for expressing and understanding these concepts. Now let's dive into a realm crucial to science: measurement. It's straightforward, right? We use rulers, thermometers, microscopes, a plethora of tools to quantify the world around us. But even in this realm of seemingly objective numbers, limitations lurk. The quest for perfect measurement is an ongoing pursuit. Every measurement has a margin of error, a range within which the true value might lie. This error can arise from the limitations of the instruments themselves, the way we use them, or even the inherent properties of what we're measuring. Imagine trying to measure the exact width of a human hair. The instrument itself might have limitations in detecting such tiny distances. Furthermore, some things might be fundamentally unmeasurable with our current technology. For instance, the position and momentum of a subatomic particle can't be known simultaneously with the perfect accuracy according to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. It's a mind-bending concept, but it highlights the limitations of our current tools to capture the full picture of the universe's building blocks. Despite these limitations, the relentless pursuit of accurate measurement is the bedrock of scientific progress. By refining instruments, developing new techniques, and acknowledging the inherent uncertainties, scientists strive to get ever closer to the true value of what they're measuring. Now we dive into the captivating world of mathematics, a realm seemingly built on absolute truths, but a mathematician named Kurt Gödel threw a wrench into this idea with his groundbreaking incompleteness theorems. Imagine a vast library containing all mathematical truths expressible within a specific system. Gödel's theorems show this is a fantastical notion. They prove that any system powerful enough to express basic arithmetic will always contain true statements that cannot be proven within that system itself. This means there are inherent limitations with any formal mathematical system. There will always be true statements that remain outside the grasp of our proofs. It's a mind-bending concept suggesting there might be mathematical truths beyond our ability to definitively prove or disprove. Gödel's theorems don't render mathematics meaningless. They do, however, challenge our perception of absolute certainty within the system. Mathematicians continue to explore the implications of these theorems, and they spark fascinating questions about the nature of knowledge itself. Now, throughout this series, we've explored fascinating limitations that shape our pursuit of knowledge, from filters of our senses to the ever-evolving nature of scientific theories. We've seen how our understanding of the world is constantly refined, but how do we separate fact from fiction? How do we build a robust understanding of the world around us? The answer lies in a crucial concept: justification. Justification refers to the process of providing evidence and sound reasoning to support a knowledge claim. Simply stating something as true isn't enough. We need to back it up with verifiable evidence and logical arguments. This is the foundation upon which reliable knowledge is built. Imagine someone claiming that the earth is flat. This claim lacks justification. Chaos. Some philosophers like Bertrand Russell suggest that the universe might just be a brute fact. It simply exists without any grand explanation. It's a challenging idea, but perhaps the existence of something is just a fundamental truth we have to accept. Now let's consider the perspective of philosopher Roy Sorensen. He argues that the question might have an impossible explanatory demand. Imagine trying to explain why a specific chair exists. You might say it was built by a carpenter using wood from a tree. But to truly answer why something exists, it encompasses everything logically conceivable, including universes with entirely different sets of physical laws, mathematical principles, and possibly even entirely new forms of existence beyond our comprehension. And then we have the inflationary multiverse. This is a prominent theory suggesting our universe underwent a rapid expansion shortly after the Big Bang. Some versions propose internal inflation, where inflation continues forever in some regions, creating an endless spawning of new universes. The idea of a vast multiverse raises many questions. Does it affect our existence in any way? Can these universes interact? Is there a master set of physical laws across the multiverse, or do they differ? The current limitations of science make it difficult to test or verify the existence of a multiverse. And then there's the law of physics answer. This approach suggests that the laws of physics themselves might necessitate the existence of something. For instance, some physicists theorize that the universe might have properties that make its existence inevitable. The universe we experience operates according to a set of physical laws, like gravity, electromagnetism, and the laws of thermodynamics. These laws govern how everything works, from the tiniest particles to the grandest galaxies. Some physicists theorize these laws might be inherent or inevitable. The universe could possess fundamental properties that makes its existence a necessity rather than a random occurrence. Some physicists propose that the laws might allow for the existence of a vacuum with zero net energy but containing virtual particles with positive and negative energy that cancel each other out. This vacuum state could then be unstable, leading to the Big Bang and the universe's existence. The universe's existence might not be a random fluke, but a consequence of the fundamental laws themselves. This is an ongoing area of research and speculation. We don't yet fully understand the origin or nature of the laws of physics. Next, we have the nothingness is unknowable answer. Some philosophers argue that the concept of nothingness itself is meaningless or unknowable. Because we exist and can conceive of something, true nothingness might be beyond our comprehension. We exist within the universe and can only conceive of things based on our experiences and limitations. True nothingness, a complete absence of everything, might be outside the realm of human comprehension. Imagine a fish trying to comprehend the concept of fire. Fire requires elements that don't exist underwater, making it fundamentally alien to the fish's experience. Likewise, true nothingness might be outside the scope of what we can understand as existing beings. Even if we can't grasp nothingness, the fact that we exist and can contemplate these questions is a remarkable thing. Next, we have the no beginning answer. Certain scientific models propose that the universe might have always existed in some form, perhaps eternally cycling or existing as a quantum potential before the Big Bang. In this view, there was never nothing to begin with. Some scientific models challenge the traditional notion of a beginning. These models propose the universe might have always existed in some form. There could be silical models where the universe endlessly expands and contracts, or it might have existed as a quantum potential before transitioning into the Big Bang. Think of a silical model as However, within the zero-point energy field, the theory suggests that virtual particles can borrow energy for a brief moment, allowing them to become real particles for a tiny fraction of a second. But how can something exist and not exist? In the quantum vacuum theory, the key point is that the seemingly empty vacuum isn't truly nothing. Science says it's a swirling sea of energy with the potential for particles to pop in and out of existence. Here's how to think about it. Imagine a pond. Normally a pond seems still and empty, but it's teeming with microscopic life, tiny organisms swimming around. The quantum vacuum is like that pond, full of potential, even though it might seem empty at first glance. Particles and antiparticles, science tells us that particles come in pairs, a particle and its antiparticle. In the quantum vacuum, these pairs can flicker in and out of existence for a very brief time, borrowing energy from the vacuum itself. It's almost like they're borrowing existence for a split second. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle tells us that it's impossible to know both the position and momentum of a particle with perfect accuracy. In the quantum vacuum, this means these fleeting particles can exist in a blurry, probabilistic state, not quite there, but not entirely nothing either. So, to answer this question directly, in the quantum vacuum theory, something exists in the sense that there's a constant fluctuation of energy and the potential for particles to appear. However, these particles aren't stable, real particles in the usual sense. They're more like fleeting possibilities, existing in a probabilistic state according to the uncertainty principle. But wait a minute. What does the uncertainty principle actually state? The quantum vacuum theory relies on a principle from quantum mechanics called the uncertainty principle. This principle, formulated by Werner Heisenberg, states that it's impossible to know both the position and momentum, which is the speed and direction of a tiny particle with perfect accuracy at the same time. Imagine trying to measure the position of a ball with a flashlight. The act of shining the light on the ball disrupts its momentum. The more precisely you measure its position, the less you know about its momentum, and vice versa. This fuzziness applies to the particles that pop in and out of existence in the quantum vacuum. These particles are so fleeting that their position and momentum are inherently uncertain. They exist in a probabilistic state, meaning there's a certain chance they'll be there, but not a definite location or speed. Why is this important? The uncertainty principle helps explain how particles can seem into the cosmos. Our actions, thoughts, and experiences aren't isolated events. Watt suggests that they're manifestations of the universe itself unfolding at this specific point in time and space. Think of a wave on the ocean. The wave is a temporary form, but it's ultimately the ocean itself in motion. Likewise, Watt suggested that we are temporary expressions of the vast cosmic energy that is the universe.
We often feel like puppets controlled by the external forces. Watts suggested that this limited perspective blinds us to the truth. The real you, the deepest part of your being, is not separate from the universe. It is the universe itself experiencing itself. This perspective offers a unique twist on the human experience. We would fill the vastness of space with our creations, from civilizations to art, perhaps as a way to fill the perceived emptiness of time. And in turn, we spend our lives killing time through experience and exploration. The theory of the universe experiencing itself delves into the nature of consciousness and the potential role in existence. Imagine a state of consciousness existing outside of space and time, perhaps always present or maybe newly arising. This consciousness wouldn't spring into existence with full-blown self-awareness. Instead, it might develop like a seed slowly sprouting. Initially, it wouldn't understand its own existence, only experiencing the raw sensations of being. Think of it like a probabilistic state, a constant flux between maybe I am and maybe I am not. These fleeting moments of self-reference could be the first sparks of consciousness, gradually solidifying into a more coherent awareness. As this consciousness evolves, it might begin to differentiate between itself and the outside world, even if those concepts are initially fuzzy and undefined. It would start to build the building blocks of experience, processing information and forming rudimentary perceptions. This gradual development of self-awareness within the universe itself is a mind-bending concept. Imagine the universe slowly learning about its own existence, building the foundation for what we might call space, time, and the physical laws that govern them. It's important to acknowledge the limitations of this theory. The concept of consciousness existing outside of space and time is difficult to grasp because of our own consciousness is so deeply tied to our physical experience. As this theory suggests, the consciousness that underlies the universe wouldn't be static. Imagine it as an ever-growing entity, constantly learning and evolving. The more it experiences, the more it expands its understanding of itself and the world around it. This raises a fascinating question. If this consciousness is infinite, could there even be limits? Time, space, and the laws of physics as we know them might not apply in this scenario. These concepts could be internal constructs created by the consciousness itself as it builds its own framework for experience. Perhaps this ever-expanding consciousness could exist in a state beyond our current comprehension. Imagine a world where the very nature of existence is fluid and ever-changing, shaped by the limitless potential of this all-encompassing awareness. It reflects the shape of the universe we inhabit. The very nature of space has been a source of philosophical debate since the days of ancient Greece. Thinkers like Plato and Aristotle pondered the essence of space, grappling with questions that still resonate today. In the Renaissance and the 17th century, as classical mechanics emerged, these questions found new life. Isaac Newton, a towering figure in science, envisioned space as an absolute entity, existing independently of any matter it might contain. However, not everyone agreed with Newton's view. Gottfried Leibniz, another intellectual giant, proposed a radically different concept. He saw space not as an independent entity, but as a network of relationships between objects, defined by their distances and directions. In this view, space was relative, a consequence of the matter it held. The 18th century brought further challenges to our perception of space. Philosopher George Berkeley questioned whether we could truly perceive spatial depth, suggesting that our sense of space might be an illusion. Immanuel Kant, a groundbreaking metaphysician, went even further. He argued that space and time weren't simply derived from our experience of the external world, but were innate structures within our minds, shaping how we perceive everything around us. Galileo Galilei, a pioneer of modern science, challenged the long-held Aristotelian and Ptolemaic views of a geocentric universe, where Earth was the stationary center. Instead, he championed the Copernican model, proposing that the Sun held the central position with Earth and other planets orbiting it. This revolutionary shift raised critical questions about motion. If Earth was in motion, the Aristotelian notion that objects naturally tended towards rest was shattered. Galileo sought to demonstrate that motion, particularly circular motion, was as natural to celestial bodies as rest. This idea challenged the Aristotelian belief that objects were drawn to their designated natural place, paving the way for a new understanding of motion in the universe. Galileo's groundbreaking work, alongside the philosophical inquiries of his predecessors, laid the groundwork for the scientific revolution. It was a time of radical transformation in our understanding of the universe, culminating in Isaac Newton's landmark publication,
Principia Mathematica in 1687. Newton's theories about space and time revolutionized physics, providing a framework to explain the movement of objects and laying the foundation for our modern understanding of the universe. René Descartes, a philosophical trailblazer, sought to replace the prevailing Aristotelian worldview with the new understanding of space and motion governed by natural laws. He aimed to establish a metaphysical foundation, a mechanical explanation for his theories of matter and motion. Descartes envisioned space as a Euclidean structure, infinite, uniform, and flat. This space was intrinsically linked to matter, serving as its container. In essence, matter and space were inseparable, with no room for the concept of empty space. His theories about space were deeply intertwined with his broader ideas about the body, mind, and matter. Descartes is renowned for his famous dictum, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. This highlighted the primacy of thought and doubt as the foundation of existence. As a rationalist, Descartes believed that knowledge about the world stemmed from our capacity for reason rather than from our experiences, as empiricists would argue. He also proposed a clear distinction between the body and mind, known as Cartesian dualism, which has had a profound and lasting influence on Western philosophy. In essence, Descartes' revolutionary ideas about space were part of a broader philosophical framework that sought to explain the universe through reason and natural laws, paving the way for the scientific advances of the Enlightenment. The debate over the nature of space continued into the 17th century with two towering figures, Gottfried Leibniz and Isaac Newton. Their opposing views sparked a philosophical duel that echoed through the ages. Leibniz, a brilliant philosopher and mathematician, rejected the idea of space as an independent entity. He saw it as a collection of spatial relationships between objects, distances, directions, and relative positions. In his view, space was a consequence of the objects it contained, not a separate entity in itself. Imagine a family tree. The relationships between family members are real, but they don't exist without the people themselves. Likewise, for Leibniz, space was an abstraction derived from the relationships between objects, not a fundamental reality. Newton, on the other hand, championed a different perspective. He believed that space was more than just relationships. It was an absolute entity, existing independently of matter. His belief was grounded in observation and experimentation. He argued that the concept of inertia, where objects resist changes in motion, required the existence of absolute space as a reference frame. Newton's famous bucket argument aimed to prove his point. Imagine a bucket of water hanging from a rope set spinning. As the water begins to swirl, its surface becomes concave. Even when the bucket stops spinning, the water continues to curve inward. Newton argued that this phenomenon couldn't be explained solely by the relative motion between the bucket and the water. It had to be due to the water's motion relative to something else, absolute space itself. This bucket argument held sway for centuries, seemingly confirming the existence of absolute space. But the debate didn't end there. As we'll see, the 20th century brought new perspectives and a deeper understanding of the intricate relationship between space, time, and matter. The 18th century brought a new perspective on space with the influential philosopher Immanuel Kant. He proposed a radical idea. Space wasn't an external reality, but rather a property of our minds, a way in which we organize and perceive the world around us. Kant's theory of space was a cornerstone of his broader philosophy of knowledge. He argued that our understanding of space wasn't derived solely from experience, but was also a fundamental part of how our minds are structured. In other words, we're born with an innate sense of space that shapes our perception of the world. He believed that knowledge about space is synthetic, meaning it goes beyond simply defining the terms involved. For example, the statement, "all triangles have three sides," is true by definition, but the statement, "this object is located 5 feet to my left," requires an understanding of spatial relationships. Kant also argued that our knowledge of space is priori, meaning it doesn't depend on sensory experience. A blind person, for example, can still understand spatial concepts like distance and direction through their other senses. This suggests that our understanding of space is not solely derived from sight, but is a fundamental aspect of how our minds are organized. In essence, Kant's theory of space challenged us to reconsider the very nature of reality itself. It suggests that space isn't simply a neutral container for objects, but an active participant in shaping our perception of the world. This revolutionary idea laid the groundwork for further exploration into the subjective nature of our experiences and the relationship between mind and reality. In the 19th century, a new chapter in the story of space unfolded, challenging the very foundations of geometry itself. For centuries, Euclidean geometry, as laid out by Euclid in his Elements, had reigned supreme. It was based on 5 postulates, seemingly self-evident truths about lines, points, and angles. One of these postulates, known as the parallel postulate, sparked a mathematical revolution. It stated that given a line and a point not on that line, there's only one other line that can pass through the point and never intersect the first, a parallel line. For centuries, mathematicians accepted this as a given, but some question whether it was truly a fundamental axiom or a theorem that could be proven. In the 1830s, 2 mathematicians, Janusz Bolai and Nikolai Lobachevsky, independently shattered this assumption. They explored a new type of geometry, hyperbolic geometry, where the parallel postulate didn't hold true. In this strange new world, an infinite number of parallel lines could pass through the same point. Triangles had angles adding up to less than 180 degrees, and the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter wasn't the familiar pi. In the 1850s, Bernhard Riemann took this revolution further with his theory of elliptical geometry. In this model, there were no parallel lines at all. Triangles had angles adding up to more than 180 degrees, and the circumference to diameter ratio of circles was less than pi. These non-Euclidean geometries weren't just mathematical curiosities. They had profound implications for our understanding of space. It turned out that space wasn't necessarily flat and uniform, as Euclid had assumed. It could curve and bend, taking on strange and unexpected shapes. This realization paved the way for Einstein's groundbreaking theory of general relativity, where gravity is seen as a curvature of space-time. The exploration of non-Euclidean geometries opened our minds to the possibilities of a universe far more complex and fascinating than we had ever imagined. It was a testament to the power of human curiosity and the relentless pursuit of knowledge, even when it challenges our most deeply held assumptions. In the wake of non-Euclidean geometry, a new question arose. Could physical space itself be curved? Carl Friedrich Gauss, a brilliant German mathematician, pioneered the idea of empirically investigating the geometry of space. He even contemplated measuring the angles of a vast stellar triangle to test its curvature, and there are accounts of him conducting smaller-scale experiments by triangulating mountaintops in Germany. He opened up a new realm of possibilities, from black holes and wormholes to the expanding universe itself. It's a testament to the power of human intellect to unlock the secrets of the cosmos and reshape our understanding of the very fabric of reality. In the realm of modern mathematics, space takes on a more abstract and versatile form. It's no longer confined to the 3 dimensions we experience in our daily lives. Instead, spaces are defined as sets, collections of objects endowed with additional structure. Often, these sets are organized as topological spaces where the concept of proximity or neighborhood is defined. This can be achieved through a distance metric, giving rise to metric spaces. In these spaces, elements are often referred to as points. Distances in space and time are not fixed, but rather depend on the observer's frame of reference. In this new framework, the mathematical concept of Minkowski's space emerged, where time is treated as a 4th dimension, interwoven with the 3 spatial dimensions. But there's a crucial distinction. While we can freely move in space, our movement through time is constrained. This asymmetry is reflected in the mathematical treatment of time and space, where they are assigned different properties and signs. Einstein's general theory of relativity took this concept even further, postulating that massive objects warp the very fabric of space-time, causing it to curve. This curvature is what we experience as gravity. One of the most astonishing predictions of general relativity is the existence of gravitational waves, ripples in space-time caused by accelerating masses. These waves were first indirectly observed in the behavior of binary pulsars, which are pairs of rapidly rotating neutron stars. More recently, the LIGO and Virgo collaborations have made groundbreaking direct observations of gravitational waves, confirming Einstein's predictions and opening a new window into the universe. Einstein's theories have profoundly transformed our understanding of space, revealing it to be a dynamic entity inextricably linked to time and influenced by the presence of matter and energy. Space is no longer a passive stage for the cosmic play, but an active participant shaping the very fabric of reality. Einstein's theory of relativity not only revolutionized our understanding of space and time, but it also opened up a whole new realm of cosmological inquiry. If space and time are intertwined and gravity warps the fabric of space-time, what does this mean for the shape of the universe itself? And where did space come from in the first place? The prevailing cosmological model suggests that space, along with everything else in the universe, was born in the fiery cauldron of the Big Bang, roughly 13.8 billion years ago. Since then, space has not remained static but has been continuously expanding. The precise shape of the universe remains a mystery. We don't know if it's finite or infinite, flat or curved. However, we do know that its expansion isn't uniform. In the earliest moments, the universe underwent a period of exponential expansion known as a cosmic inflation. This rapid growth spurt stretched the fabric of space, smoothing out some of its wrinkles and leaving behind subtle patterns in the cosmic microwave background radiation, the afterglow of the Big Bang. The study of cosmology is a journey into the unknown, where we grapple with the largest and most fundamental questions about the universe. Thanks to Einstein's relativity and the tools of modern astronomy, we continue to refine our understanding of space, its origins, and its ultimate fate. The measurement of physical space has been a pursuit of humanity since ancient times. Early civilizations developed various systems for measuring distances and defining areas, but the modern world relies on a standardized approach, the International System of Units, or SI. In the SI system, the meter is the fundamental unit of length, serving as the basis for measuring distances across the universe. The definition of the meter itself has evolved over time, reflecting our deepening understanding of the universe. Today, the meter is defined as the distance that light travels in a vacuum during a specific time interval. 1,299,792,458th of a second. This definition, intertwined with the modern definition of a second, is rooted in Einstein's special theory of relativity, where the speed of light is a fundamental constant of nature. This connection between the measurement of space and the speed of light underscores the interconnectedness of space, time, and light itself. It highlights how our understanding of space has evolved from simple measurements of distance to a deeper appreciation of its role in the fabric of space-time. In essence, the definition of the meter is a testament to the power of science to unravel the mysteries of the universe and create a universal language for understanding the physical world. It's a reminder that even the most fundamental concepts like space can be defined and measured with incredible precision, allowing us to explore the cosmos with ever-increasing accuracy and insight. Geography, the study of places and spaces on Earth, relies on spatial awareness to understand why things exist where they do. Cartography, the art and science of mapmaking, helps us visualize and navigate these spaces. Geostatistics uses statistical methods to analyze spatial data and predict patterns in the environment. Geographical space is often synonymous with land, and it can be linked to concepts of ownership and usage. Different cultures have varying perspectives on land ownership, ranging from individual property rights to communal ownership, or even the idea that land owns us, as held by some indigenous cultures. Spatial planning regulates land use at various levels, from local to international, shaping how we interact with our environment. Space also influences human behavior and cultural practices. In architecture, it dictates the design of buildings and structures. In agriculture, it determines how we cultivate the land and manage resources. Ownership isn't limited to land though. We also regulate airspace and waters through international agreements. And new forms of ownership have emerged, such as rights to radio frequencies or domains in cyberspace. The concept of public space denotes areas collectively owned and managed for the benefit of the community, open to everyone. In contrast, private property is land owned by individuals or companies for their own use. In geography, the term abstract space refers to a hypothetical space with uniform properties, used as a tool in modeling and analysis to isolate specific variables and simplify complex phenomena. Understanding the different facets of geographical space is crucial for addressing challenges like urban planning, resource management, and environmental conservation. It helps us make informed decisions about how we use and interact with the world around us, ensuring a sustainable future for both humanity and the planet. The study of space isn't confined to physics and philosophy. It also plays a significant role in psychology. In the mid-19th century, psychologists began investigating how we perceive space, and today, it's a distinct branch of the field. Researchers delve into how we recognize an object's physical appearance and its interactions with a given space. They explore visual space, the way we perceive the world through our eyes, and the fascinating phenomena of amodal perception, where we perceive objects as complete even when parts are hidden. And object permanence, the understanding that objects continue to exist even when out of sight. Our perception of surroundings is deeply intertwined with our survival instincts. It's crucial for navigating our environment, whether for hunting, self-preservation, or simply maintaining our personal space. The psychological significance of space is also evident in various phobias related to it. Agoraphobia is the fear of open spaces. Astrophobia is the fear of celestial space, and claustrophobia is the fear of enclosed spaces. These conditions highlight the powerful impact that spatial perception can have on our emotions and well-being. Interestingly, our understanding of three-dimensional space is thought to develop during infancy through unconscious inference, closely linked to the development of shapes our perceptions and how it's intertwined with the very fabric of our social and cultural lives. But the mysteries of space aren't confined to textbooks or laboratories. They're open to anyone with a curious mind and thirst for knowledge. By simply pondering the nature of space, questioning your own experience of it, you become part of this grand exploration. Remember, the most groundbreaking ideas often come from those who dare to think differently. Perhaps the next great breakthrough in our understanding of space will come from a fresh perspective, a new way of looking at the universe. It could come from you, so don't hesitate to observe, to question, to imagine. The history of science is filled with individuals who, driven by curiosity, revolutionized our understanding of the world. The secrets of space are out there, waiting to be revealed. Go forth, explore, and keep asking the big questions. Who knows what incredible discoveries you might make. Thank you everyone for watching. My name's The Big Y. Don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new to the Why Not family, a follow. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. In the fall of 2017, a mysterious spike in airborne radioactivity was detected across Europe, triggering a wave of concern and speculation about its origins. This unusual event, while not posing an immediate threat to human health, raised questions about the potential nuclear incidents and the safety of nuclear facilities across the continent. In this video, we'll delve into the details of the 2017 airborne radioactivity increase in Europe, examining the scientific data, the investigations that were conducted, and the possible explanations that have been proposed. And who knows, perhaps the next big discovery in nuclear forensics or environmental monitoring will be made by someone watching this video right now. In the fall of 2017, a mysterious increase in airborne radioactivity was detected across Europe, setting off a wave of concern and speculation. Starting in late September, monitoring stations across the continent began picking up traces of ruthenium-106, a radioactive isotope, in the air. While the levels of ruthenium-106 were low, not posing an immediate threat to human health in most of Europe, the unusual nature of this detection raised questions about its origins and the potential for a nuclear incident somewhere on the continent. The source of the radioactive release was widely suspected to be in Russia due to the pattern of detections and the concentration of ruthenium-106 in the eastern parts of Europe. However, the Russian government denied any involvement or knowledge of a nuclear mishap that could have caused the radiation spike. This lack of transparency and the mysterious nature of the release fueled speculation and concern among the public and the scientific community. Experts estimated that while the low levels of radiation detected across Europe were not harmful, the source of the release likely experienced much higher levels of radiation, potentially posing a risk to the individuals in its vicinity. As the mysterious radioactive plume spread across Europe, various monitoring networks and agencies sprang into action, trying to identify the source and assess the potential risks. In early October of 2017, several European countries reported detecting elevated levels of ruthenium-106 in the air. Switzerland's Federal Office of Public Health noted an increase in radioactive ruthenium-106 particles starting on September 25th. France's Institute of Radioprotection and Nuclear Safety also detected elevated levels in early October, which gradually decreased and disappeared by October 13th. The IRSN conducted a detailed assessment of the situation, concluding that while there was no significant health risk for most people in Europe, the amount of radiation released was substantial. They estimated that the source of the release likely had an activity of 100 to 300 terabecquerels, a significant amount of radioactivity that would have required the evacuation of people within a several kilometer radius. This raised concerns about the potential source of the release and the possible impact on those living near it. The fact that the source remained unidentified added to the mystery and fueled speculation about a potential nuclear incident at a power plant or other facility. Here's a timeline of how the situation developed and the public announcements that were made. On September 25th, the Swiss Federal Office of Public Health reports an increase in radioactive ruthenium-106 particles in the air. On September 27th, the Greek Atomic Energy Commission announces increased radiation levels in Athens attributed to the presence of ruthenium-106. On September 29th, the German Office for Radiation Protection reports elevated levels of radioactivity, later identified as ruthenium-106. On October 3rd, the Austrian Ministry of the Environment informs the public about the detection of ruthenium-106. The Finnish Radiation and Nuclear Safety Authority also announces increased radioactivity in samples collected since September 28th. On October 6th, the French Institute of Radio Protection and Nuclear Safety reports that the initially high levels of ruthenium-106 have been steadily decreasing. On October 9th, the Nuclear Safety Administration of the Republic of Slovenia announces the detection of low levels of ruthenium-106 in the atmosphere. October 13th, the IRSN reports that ruthenium-106 is no longer detected in France. Initial investigations pointed towards Eastern Europe, with German authorities estimating the source to be over 1,000 kilometers away. Further analysis by the German Federal Radiation Protection Service narrowed down the potential location to the southern Urals region in Russia or Kazakhstan. The IRSN ruled out a nuclear reactor as the source, suggesting instead a spent fuel treatment facility or a center producing radioactive medicine. They also pointed to the southern Urals as the likely origin. Data from Russian monitoring stations revealed a significant increase in ruthenium-106 levels in the southern Urals region in late September 2017. This coincided with the detection of ruthenium-106 decayed products in Tatarstan and high levels of radioactive contamination in Volgograd and Rostov-on-Don. Suspicion quickly fell upon the Mayak Reprocessing and Isotope Production Plant, a nuclear facility located in the southern Urals. However, both Mayak authorities and Rosatom, the Russian state nuclear agency, initially denied any connection to the release. In November 2017, the Russian government admitted to a radiation spike near Mayak, but maintained that the available data was insufficient to confirm the source of the pollution. They also denied any knowledge of an incident at the facility. However, in December of 2017, a Mayak executive admitted that ruthenium-106 is routinely released during the reprocessing of spent nuclear fuel. He downplayed the amount released and denied that Mayak was the source of the radiation spike. Investigating the incident within Russia was hampered by the secrecy surrounding Mayak, a closed city with restricted access, and by government harassment of those who raised concerns about nuclear safety. Despite these challenges, an international committee led by the Russian Academy of Sciences Nuclear Safety Institute was formed to investigate the incident. The IRSN, in their report to the committee, concluded that the most likely source was a spent fuel treatment facility in the southern Urals, potentially linked to an unsuccessful attempt to produce cerium-144, a radioactive isotope used in scientific research. While the non-Russian members of the committee accepted this conclusion, the Russian members maintained that an inspection of Mayak had found no anomalies and suggested that a rare meteorological event might have transported the ruthenium-106 from another location. However, in 2019, a group of European nuclear research institutions published a study providing clear evidence that the leak originated from the southern Urals, strongly implicating the Mayak plant as the source of the 2017 ruthenium-106 release. This incident, while ultimately not causing any significant harm to human health, highlighted the importance of transparency and international cooperation in addressing potential nuclear incidents. It also underscored the need for robust environmental monitoring systems and the public's right to know about potential risks to their health and safety. Thank you everyone for watching. My name's The Big Y. Don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new to the Why Not family, a follow. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Between Earth's atmosphere and outer space. But to keep things simple, We use an imaginary line called the Kármán line about 62 miles above sea level as the official starting point of outer space. But just because there's no hard line doesn't mean there aren't some interesting zones in between. The upper parts of our atmosphere, like the stratosphere and mesosphere, are sometimes called near space. It's a region where the air gets thinner and thinner, and the effects of space start to become more noticeable. Speaking of noticeable, did you know that space isn't actually lawless? There are international treaties in place, like the Outer Space Treaty, that help to govern what countries can and can't do out there. It's kind of like the Wild West of the cosmos, but with some rules to keep things from getting too chaotic. Despite these rules, humans have been venturing into space for decades, pushing the boundaries of exploration. It all started with high-altitude balloons, followed by the first crewed rocket flights, and eventually the historic moment when Yuri Gagarin became the first human to orbit the Earth. Of course, space travel isn't cheap or easy. It takes a lot of resources to send anything, let alone a person, into orbit. That's why most human spaceflight has been limited to low Earth orbit and the moon. But that doesn't mean we haven't been busy. Uncrewed spacecraft have journeyed to every planet in our solar system, sending back incredible images and data. And while space may seem like a hostile environment, with its vacuum, radiation, and microgravity, it hasn't stopped us from dreaming of exploring it further. Who knows, maybe one day, you'll be the one to take that next giant leap for humankind. Interestingly enough, the word space as a way to describe the area beyond Earth's sky has a longer history than you might think. It dates back to the 17th century, even making an appearance in John Milton's epic poem Paradise Lost. The term outer space came a bit later, first popping up in a poem in 1842, but it really gained traction through the works of science fiction writers like H.G. Wells in the early 20th century. Now, when we talk about things in space, we use some cool terms. Spaceborne means something that exists in outer space, usually carried by a spacecraft. So astronauts on the International Space Station are spaceborne, as are satellites orbiting the Earth. And if something is space-based, it means it's either located in space or another planet or moon. For example, a space-based telescope is one that orbits the Earth, giving us a clear view of the universe. It's fascinating to see how our language has evolved to describe the wonders of space. And as we continue to explore and learn more, who knows what new words and ideas will emerge to capture the mysteries of the cosmos. The universe as we understand it began with the Big Bang, a colossal explosion of energy that occurred about 13.8 billion years ago. Back then, everything was packed into an incredibly hot, dense state. But in a fraction of a second, it expanded rapidly, and it's been expanding ever since. It took about 380,000 years for things to cool down enough for atoms to form, and that's when light was finally able to travel freely through space. Now, because light travels at a finite speed, we can only see a certain portion of the universe, the part from which light has had time to reach us. It's like a bubble of visibility centered around Earth, and we call it the observable universe. But the whole universe? Well, we don't actually know how big it is. It could be finite, or it could stretch on forever. It's a mystery that continues to challenge our understanding of the cosmos. What we do know is that the universe isn't just expanding, it's actually accelerating. This accelerated expansion is driven by a mysterious force called dark matter, which makes up about 70% of the universe's total energy density. And that's not all. There's also dark matter, an invisible substance that accounts for about 25% of the universe. So even though we can only see about 5% of the universe, the regular matter made up of atoms, it's just a tiny fraction of what's actually out there. Speaking of matter, the density of the universe varies greatly from place to place. It's densest in galaxies where stars, planets, and even supermassive black holes reside. But in the vast voids between galaxies, the density drops dramatically. It's a cosmic tapestry of contrast, with regions of intense activity and seemingly empty stretches, all contributing to the grand symphony of the universe. Now let's dive deeper into the unique properties of outer space. As we mentioned earlier, it's the closest thing to a perfect vacuum we know of. This means there's practically no friction out there. Imagine a place where stars, planets, and moons can glide effortlessly along their orbits, almost like they're on cosmic ice skates. This vacuum isn't completely empty though. There are still a few hydrogen atoms floating around per cubic meter. Compare that to the air we breathe, which is packed with the 10 to the 25th integer molecules in the same space. That's 10 followed by 25 zeros. This low density allows electromagnetic radiation, like light and radio waves, to travel vast distances without being scattered. That's why we can see stars and galaxies that are billions of light years away. But even in this near vacuum, there are things that can block light. Dust and gas clouds, especially in galaxies, can absorb and scatter photons, making them difficult to see. It's a bit like trying to look through a dusty window. You can still see shapes, but the details are obscured. You might be wondering how planets and moons manage to hold on to their atmospheres in this vacuum. It's all thanks to gravity. The stronger the gravity, the better an object can hold on to its atmosphere. But there's no clear-cut boundary where the atmosphere ends and space begins. It gradually fades away, like a painting that blends into the background. Space also has a unique smell. According to astronauts who have ventured outside their spacecraft, they describe it as a burned or metallic odor, similar to the scent of a welding torch. It's a strange and unexpected sensation, a reminder that space is full of surprises. Space may seem inhospitable, but life is surprisingly resilient. Believe it or not, certain organisms have shown they can survive the harsh conditions of space for extended periods. Lichen, those crusty growths you see in rocks and trees, have survived exposure to space for days. Even some plant seeds, like those from tobacco, have germinated after spending over a year in space. There's even a type of bacteria that has survived for almost 2 years in both low Earth orbit and simulated Martian environments. These discoveries have led to a fascinating theory called lithopanspermia. It suggests that life could hitch a ride on rocks ejected from one planet and travel through space to another, potentially seeding life on a new world. Some scientists even believe this could have happened early in our solar system's history, with microorganisms potentially being exchanged between Earth, Mars, and Venus. This idea challenges our understanding of how life spreads and evolves. Who knows what other secrets about life in the universe are waiting to be discovered in the vast expanse of space? Now let's talk about one of the most immediate dangers of space: the vacuum. You see, space has virtually no pressure, which is a big problem for us humans. As you go higher above Earth's surface, the pressure drops. At a certain altitude, around 11.89 miles up, the pressure gets so low that it matches the vapor pressure of water inside our bodies. This is called the Armstrong line, and it's not a place you want to be without protection. Above this line, the fluids in our bodies, like saliva, tears, and the moisture in our lungs, would start to boil away. Imagine that. That's why astronauts need pressurized suits or capsules to survive at those altitudes. If you were exposed to the vacuum of space without protection, it would be, well, not pretty. The sudden drop in pressure could cause your lungs to rupture, your eardrums and sinuses to burst, and your blood to literally boil. This terrifying condition is called ebullism, and it's definitely not something you want to experience. But don't worry. Astronauts have special suits to protect them from all of this. These suits create a pressurized environment that keeps their bodies safe and sound even in the most extreme conditions. So, while the vacuum of space might seem like an insurmountable obstacle, human ingenuity has found ways to overcome it. We've designed suits and spacecraft that allow us to explore this harsh environment and push the boundaries of our knowledge. Living in the weightlessness of space also presents unique challenges for our bodies. We humans evolved under the constant pull of Earth's gravity. So floating around without that familiar force can have some strange effects. Many astronauts experience space motion sickness, which can cause nausea, dizziness, and even headaches. It's like a never-ending roller coaster ride, but thankfully, it usually subsides after a few days as the body adapts. But the effects of weightlessness go beyond just feeling queasy. Extended stays in space can lead to muscle atrophy, where muscles become weaker and smaller. Bones can also weaken, a condition called spaceflight osteopenia, which is similar to osteoporosis. It's like our bodies forget to use those muscles and bones without the constant tug of gravity. But don't worry, astronauts have exercise routines to help counteract these effects and stay healthy in space. Radiation is another significant concern for space travelers. Out in the vastness of space, we're exposed to high-energy cosmic rays that can damage our cells and DNA. Short-term effects can include fatigue, nausea, and changes in blood cell counts. But over the long term, radiation exposure increases the risk of cancer and can damage the eyes, nervous system, and other organs. Think about a mission to Mars, which would take about 3 years round trip. During that time, a significant portion of an astronaut's cells would be exposed to and potentially damaged by these harmful rays. Thankfully, spacecraft provide some shielding, and scientists are constantly researching ways to protect astronauts from radiation during those long-duration space travels. It's clear that space travel is not without its risks, but the potential rewards of exploring the cosmos are immense. By understanding the challenges and developing solutions, we can continue to push the boundaries of human exploration and unlock the secrets of the universe. Now let's address the big question. Where does space actually begin? As we've already touched on, there's no clear-cut line where the Earth's atmosphere simply stops and space begins. Instead, it's a gradual transition, like a fade-out in a movie scene. The air gets thinner and thinner as you go higher, eventually blending into the solar wind, a stream of charged particles emanating from the sun. So, how do we define the boundary of space? Well, there are different ideas depending on who you ask. Some say it starts as low as 19 miles above sea level, while others argue it could be as far out as 990,000 miles. It's a bit of a gray area, but we have a few reference points to help us out. High-altitude balloons have soared as high as 31 miles, while certain aircraft, like the X-15 rocket plane, have reached altitudes above 50 miles. But to be considered an astronaut, you need to go a bit higher. Until recently, the US defined astronauts as anyone who traveled above 50 miles, but now it's reserved for spacecraft crew members who contribute to human spaceflight safety. So, it's not just about reaching a certain altitude, it's about what you do while you're up there. In 2009, scientists found an interesting midpoint around 73 miles up, where the gentle winds of Earth's atmosphere give way to the more chaotic flows of outer space. It's like a cosmic changing of the guard, where one realm ends and another begins. Then there's the Kármán line, set at 62 miles above sea level. This is the internationally recognized boundary between Earth's atmosphere and outer space. It's named after Theodore von Kármán, who figured out that at this altitude, a vehicle would need to travel faster than orbital velocity to stay aloft, essentially becoming a spacecraft instead of an aircraft. So, while the exact boundary of space remains a bit fuzzy, we have these reference points to guide us. Whether it's the Kármán line, the 50-mile mark, or somewhere in between, one thing is certain. The journey from Earth's atmosphere to the vastness of outer space is a remarkable transition, full of wonder and possibility. Now, you might think that space, being so vast and seemingly untouched, is a lawless frontier, but you'd be surprised. There's actually a whole system of international space law in place to help manage our activities beyond Earth. The foundation of this legal framework is the Outer Space Treaty, which was signed by over 100 countries back in 1967. This treaty declares that outer space, including the moon and other celestial bodies, belongs to all of humankind. It's like a cosmic public park, where everyone has the right to explore and use space peacefully. Of course, this also means that no single country can claim ownership of the moon or any other celestial body. The Outer Space Treaty also prohibits the placement of nuclear weapons in space, aiming to keep the cosmos a peaceful domain. However, it doesn't explicitly ban conventional weapons, and some countries have even tested anti-satellite weapons, adding a new layer of complexity to the space law landscape. The United Nations has also played a significant role in shaping international space law. They've passed numerous resolutions promoting cooperation in space exploration and trying to prevent an arms race in the cosmos. It's an ongoing effort to ensure that space remains a place for peaceful collaboration and scientific discovery. However, one issue that's becoming increasingly important is the growing problem of space debris. As we launch more and more satellites and spacecraft, the amount of junk orbiting our planet is increasing. This debris poses a risk to operational satellites and future space missions. So, while we've made great strides in establishing a legal framework for space, new challenges continue to emerge, requiring us to adapt and find solutions to ensure the long-term sustainability of our activities in space. Now let's talk about Earth's orbit. It's a pretty amazing feat of cosmic balance, and it's essential for our understanding of space travel. Imagine a spacecraft trying to enter orbit around our planet. To do that, it needs to find the sweet spot where the pull of Earth's gravity is perfectly balanced by the outward force created by its horizontal velocity. For a low Earth orbit, this means whizzing around the planet at a speed of about 17,400 miles per hour. That's incredibly fast. To put it into perspective, the fastest piloted airplane ever built only reaches about 4,900 miles per hour. So, how does a spacecraft achieve this incredible speed and reach orbit? Well, it needs a powerful rocket to boost it up to the right altitude and velocity. And the energy required to reach orbit is about 6 times the energy needed just to climb to that altitude. It's like sprinting up a hill and then leaping off the top at full speed. But once a spacecraft is in orbit, it doesn't stay there forever. Low Earth orbit, where many satellites and the International Space Station reside, is still within the grasp of Earth's atmosphere. The drag from the thin air gradually slows down the spacecraft, causing it to lose altitude and eventually re-enter the atmosphere. The lower the orbit, the faster this decay happens. Some satellites in very low orbits only last a few days or weeks before burning up in the atmosphere. But at higher altitudes, spacecraft can stay in orbit for centuries. It's a delicate balance between the forces of gravity and drag, and it's a crucial factor in planning any space mission. Now let's zoom in a bit and explore the regions of space closer to home. The area around Earth known as near-Earth space is a bustling hub of activity. It extends from low Earth orbit, where many satellites zip around the planet, out to geostationary orbit, where satellites match Earth's rotation and appear to hover in the sky. This region is crucial for our daily lives. It's where we find communication satellites that enable our phone calls and internet access, weather satellites that help us predict storms, and navigation satellites that guide our GPS devices. It's a busy place filled with human-made objects that have become essential to our modern world. However, again, this increased activity has also led to a growing problem. Space debris. Imagine a junkyard in space filled with old satellites, spent rocket stages, and fragments from collisions. This debris poses a threat to other spacecraft and satellites, increasing the risk of collisions and damage. It's a very serious issue that scientists and engineers are working hard to address, but it's a reminder that even in the seemingly pristine environment of space, our actions can have unintended consequences. Despite the challenges, near-Earth space remains a fascinating and dynamic region. It's a place where human ingenuity and exploration are constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Who knows what new discoveries and technologies await us in this ever-evolving frontier? Zooming out a bit further, we encounter a region known as geospace. This is essentially Earth's personal bubble in space, encompassing our planet's upper atmosphere and the protective magnetic field that surrounds us, called the magnetosphere. Within this bubble, we find the famous Von Allen radiation belts, 2 donut-shaped rings of charged particles trapped by Earth's magnetic field. The outer edge of geospace is defined by the magnetopause, where our planet's magnetic field pushes back against the constant stream of particles from the sun known as the solar wind. Now here's the fascinating part. Geospace isn't static. It's constantly changing and evolving in response to the sun's activity. Solar flares and eruptions can trigger geomagnetic storms that wreak havoc on our planet's magnetic field. These storms can disrupt satellite communication, interfere with GPS signals, and even pose a threat to astronauts in space. They also create the mesmerizing auroras, those shimmering curtains of light that dance across the skies near the Earth's poles. Think of geospace like a cosmic weather system, with the sun acting as the ultimate influencer. The constant interplay between the solar wind and Earth's magnetic field creates a dynamic and sometimes turbulent environment. Scientists who study this field, known as heliophysics, are constantly working to better understand these complex interactions and their impact on our planet and technology. So while geospace might seem like just another layer of space, it's actually a vital part of our planet's environment. It shields us from harmful radiation, influences our weather patterns, and plays a crucial role in the complex dance between Earth and the Sun. Venturing even further from Earth, we enter the vast realm of exgeospace. This is a term coined by the US to describe the region between geosynchronous orbit, extending all the way out to the gravitational sweet spot between Earth and the Moon, known as the L2 Earth-Moon Lagrange point. Exgeospace encompasses a variety of interesting regions, including cislunar space, which is the area around the Moon. This region is gaining increasing attention as a potential hub for future space exploration and resource utilization. It's a place where we could potentially build lunar bases, mine resources, and even launch missions to deeper parts of the solar system. Beyond cislunar space, we enter translunar space, the region where spacecraft travel on their way to and from the Moon. It's like a cosmic highway connecting our planet to its natural satellite. Of course, Earth's gravitational pull doesn't simply stop at the Moon. It extends much further, forming a region called the Hill Sphere, where Earth's gravity is dominant over that of other celestial bodies. Think of it like Earth's personal gravitational bubble. But as we journey even further, We eventually reach a point where Earth's gravity loses its grip, and the sun's influence takes over. This is where deep space truly begins. It's the vast expanse beyond our planet's immediate neighborhood, encompassing the outer reaches of our solar system and the vast distances between stars. The definition of deep space can vary, but it's generally considered to be the region beyond the moon's orbit or even beyond the furthest reaches of our solar system. It's a place where the sun is just another star in the sky, and the vastness of the cosmos truly hits home. It's a place of endless possibilities and unimaginable mysteries, just waiting to be explored. As we journey away from Earth, we enter the vast realm of interplanetary space. This is the space within our solar system, the region between the planets and the sun, extending all the way out to where the solar wind, a constant stream of charged particles from the sun, finally loses its strength. The solar wind creates a tenuous atmosphere called the heliosphere, which envelops our entire solar system like a giant bubble. Inside this bubble, the solar wind carries about 5 to 10 protons per cubic centimeter, traveling at speeds of hundreds of thousands of miles per hour. That's like a cosmic breeze constantly blowing through our solar system. The heliosphere acts as a shield, protecting us from most of the low-energy cosmic rays that come from outside of our solar system. It's like a cosmic force field keeping us safe from harmful radiation. But don't be fooled by the term space. Interplanetary space isn't entirely empty. It's sparsely populated with cosmic rays, which are higher energy particles zipping through the void. There's also some gas, plasma, dust, and even tiny meteoroids. Scientists have even discovered various organic molecules floating around out there, the building blocks of life. One fascinating feature of interplanetary space is the zodiacal light, a faint band of light that you can sometimes see in the night sky. It's caused by sunlight reflecting off dust particles scattered throughout the solar system. And let's not forget the magnetic fields. The sun has a powerful magnetic field that extends throughout interplanetary space. Planets like Earth, Jupiter, Saturn, and Mercury also have their own magnetic fields, which interact with the solar wind in complex ways. These magnetic fields can trap charged particles, creating belts of radiation around some planets, like the Van Allen belts around Earth. But planets without strong magnetic fields, like Mars, are more vulnerable to the solar wind, which can gradually strip away their atmospheres. Interplanetary space is a dynamic and ever-changing environment shaped by the sun's activity and the interactions between different celestial bodies. It's a place of incredible beauty and scientific intrigue, and it holds the key to understanding our place in the solar system and beyond. Leaving our solar system behind, we venture into the vast expanse of interstellar space. This is the region between star systems within a galaxy, a seemingly empty void that's actually filled with a thin soup of matter and radiation known as the interstellar medium. It's like the cosmic space between the stars. The interstellar medium is mostly made up of hydrogen atoms with a sprinkling of helium and trace amounts of heavier elements forged in the fiery hearts of stars. These elements are released into space through stellar winds, planetary nebulae, and the explosive deaths of massive stars known as supernova. Now, you might think interstellar space is just a vast empty expanse, but it's actually quite dynamic. The density of matter varies greatly, from relatively empty regions to dense clouds of gas and dust where new stars are born. Within these clouds, complex chemical reactions take place, leading to the formation of a wide array of molecules, including organic compounds, the building blocks of life. In our own galactic neighborhood, we have the local interstellar cloud, a region of space within 30 light years of the sun. It's relatively sparse compared to other regions, but it still contains an abundance of interstellar gas and dust. It's like our local cosmic backyard, a place where we can study the interstellar medium up close and learn more about the conditions that exist between stars. As stars move through the interstellar medium, they create their own bubbles of influence called astrospheres. These bubbles are formed by the stellar wind, a stream of charged particles emanating from the star. The boundary between the astrosphere and the interstellar medium is called the astropause. For our sun, we call this bubble the heliosphere, and its boundary is the heliopause. Sometimes when stars move fast enough, their astrospheres create bow shocks as they plow through the interstellar medium. Think of it like a boat creating a wave as it moves through water. For a long time, scientists believed that our sun also had a bow shock, but recent data suggests that's not the case. Instead, we have a subsonic bow wave, a gentler ripple that marks the transition from the solar wind to the interstellar medium. So as you can see, interstellar space is far from empty. It's a complex and ever-changing environment filled with raw materials for new stars and planets, and perhaps even the seeds of life itself. Now, if we zoom out even further, we leave behind individual galaxies and enter the vast realm of intergalactic space. This is the space between galaxies, and it's even emptier than interstellar space. Imagine the universe as a giant cosmic web with galaxies clustered together like sparkling beads on delicate threads. The The space between these threads, that's intergalactic space. The structure of the universe is like a cosmic foam, with clusters and filaments of galaxies forming the bubbles, and vast voids making up the empty spaces between them. These voids are truly enormous, spanning millions of light years, and while they might seem empty, they're actually filled with a very thin, extremely hot gas called the intergalactic medium. It's so thin that it has only about 1 atom per cubic meter, but it's incredibly hot, with temperatures ranging from tens of thousands to millions of degrees. This hot gas is thought to make up a significant portion of the ordinary matter in the universe. As gas from these voids falls towards the clusters of galaxies, it gets even hotter, forming a superheated plasma called the intracluster medium. Think of it like a cosmic whirlpool where gas is drawn in and heated to extreme temperatures. So even though intergalactic space might seem like the most desolate place imaginable, it's actually teeming with activity on a grand scale. The movement of gas, the formation of galaxy clusters, and the vast voids all contribute to the ever-evolving structure of the universe. It's a place of incredible extremes where the vastness of space and the power of gravity create a truly awe-inspiring spectacle. Our understanding of space has evolved over centuries, with brilliant minds grappling with its mysteries and challenging prevailing beliefs. Back in ancient Greece, the philosopher Aristotle believed that nature abhorred a vacuum, a concept known as oa vacui. He thought that space couldn't be empty, a notion that persisted for centuries. In ancient China, however, the astronomer Zheng He had a different view. He believed that space was infinite, expanding far beyond the sun and stars. He envisioned a boundless expanse, empty and void of substance, where celestial objects move freely. Fast forward to the 17th century, where the Italian scientist Galileo Galilei made a groundbreaking discovery. He realized that air has mass and is subject to gravity, paving the way for a new understanding of the nature of space. His student, Evangelista Torricelli, took this further and created the first partial vacuum in 1643 using a mercury barometer. This experiment caused a sensation in Europe and opened the door for further exploration of the vacuum. Blaise Pascal, a French mathematician, then had a brilliant idea. He reasoned that if air pressure supported the column of mercury in a barometer, then the column should be shorter at higher altitudes where the air is thinner. His brother-in-law tested this theory on a mountaintop in France and confirmed Pascal's hypothesis. This experiment, along with others like it, gradually chipped away at the idea of oa vacui and paved the way for our modern understanding of space as a vacuum. As our understanding of space evolved, so did our ideas about the nature of the universe itself. In the 15th century, German theologian Nicholas Copernicus proposed that the universe had no center or circumference. He imagined a universe that, while not infinite, was unbounded, challenging the prevailing geocentric model. Italian philosopher Giordano Bruno took this idea even further in the 16th century, proposing an infinite universe filled with a substance called aether. This aether was thought to be the medium through which light traveled, a concept that gained traction among scientists for centuries. However, in 1887, the Michelson-Morley experiment failed to detect any evidence of aether, throwing the scientific community into a frenzy. It wasn't until Albert Einstein introduced his theory of spatial relativity that we had a new framework for understanding the universe. Einstein showed that the speed of light is constant in a vacuum, regardless of the observer's motion, and that there was no need for aether to explain its behavior. The true scale of the universe started to reveal itself in the 19th century, when astronomers began measuring the distances to nearby stars. In 1838, Friedrich Bessel successfully measured the distance to 61 Cygni, a star system over 10 light years away. This groundbreaking achievement opened our eyes to the vastness of the cosmos. Later in 1923, Edwin Hubble made another monumental discovery. By measuring the brightness of Cepheid, variable stars in the Andromeda galaxy, he determined that it was far beyond the Milky Way, proving that our galaxy was just one of many in the universe. This realization revolutionized our understanding of the cosmos and paved the way for modern cosmology. The modern concept of outer space is based on the Big Bang theory, which was first proposed by Georges Lemaitre in 1931. This theory posits that the universe began in a hot, dense state and has been expanding and cooling ever since. Even the temperature of outer space has been a subject of scientific inquiry. In 1896, Charles E. Guillaume made the first estimate, suggesting that space was heated to 5 to 6 Kelvin due to the background radiation of stars. Over the years, other scientists refined this estimate, and today we know that the average temperature of space is about 2.7 Kelvin, thanks to the cosmic microwave background radiation, the afterglow of the Big Bang. As you can see, our understanding of space has been a long and winding journey, filled with groundbreaking discoveries, revolutionary theories, and relentless pursuit of knowledge. And it's far from over. The universe still holds countless mysteries, and each new discovery brings us closer to understanding our place in the cosmos. Humanity's fascination with space has led us on remarkable journeys of exploration. For most of history, we could only gaze at the stars from Earth using our eyes and then telescopes to unlock their secrets. But our thirst for knowledge went far beyond mere observation. We dreamed of reaching the stars, and eventually we found a way. High-altitude balloons were our first foray into the upper reaches of Earth's atmosphere. Then came rockets, powerful enough to propel us even higher. In 1957, the launch of Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite, marked a turning point in human history. We had finally put an object into orbit around our planet. The space race was on, and just a few years later, in 1961, Yuri Gagarin became the first human to journey into space, orbiting the Earth aboard Vostok 1. It was a monumentous achievement that captured the world's imagination and sparked a new era of space exploration. But we didn't stop there. In 1968, the Apollo 8 mission took 3 astronauts further than any human had ever been before. They orbited the moon, witnessing the Earth rise above the lunar horizon for the first time. It was a sight that changed our perspective on our place in the universe. And while humans have ventured as far as the moon, our robotic emissaries have gone much further. Uncrewed spacecraft have visited every planet in our solar system, from scorching Mercury to the icy Neptune and even beyond. They've captured stunning images, gathered valuable data, and expanded our understanding of the cosmos in ways we never thought possible. In 2012, the Voyager 1 spacecraft made history by becoming the first human-made object to leave our solar system and enter interstellar space. It's a testament to human ingenuity and our unyielding curiosity about the universe. And who knows what other incredible milestones await us as we continue our journey of exploration. Beyond its scientific significance, outer space has become a valuable asset to our global society with numerous practical applications that benefit our economy and daily lives. One of the most impactful uses of space is the deployment of artificial satellites. These technological marvels orbit our planet and provide us with a wide range of services. They enable long-distance communication, allowing us to connect with people across the globe through phone calls, video chats, and the internet. They provide precise navigation, guiding our ships, planes, and even our smartphones. They monitor weather patterns, helping us predict and prepare for storms, and offer remote sensing capabilities, giving us valuable insights into our planet's health and resources. Satellites can track soil moisture for agriculture, predict water runoff from melting snow, detect diseases in crops, and even monitor military activities. They play a crucial role in tracking climate change and its impact on our environment. The unique conditions of space, with its lack of atmospheric drag, allow satellites to maintain stable orbits and efficiently cover the entire globe, making them indispensable tools for a variety of purposes. Space also provides an ideal environment for astronomy. Without the interference of Earth's atmosphere, telescopes in space can observe the universe across the entire electromagnetic spectrum, from radio waves to gamma rays. The Hubble Space Telescope, for example, has captured breathtaking images of distant galaxies and nebulae, allowing us to peer back in time to the very beginnings of the universe. Different locations in space offer unique advantages for different types of telescopes. For instance, placing infrared telescopes beyond the dust clouds of our solar system allows for clearer observations of faint objects like exoplanets. Likewise, the far side of the moon, shielded from Earth's radio interference, could be an ideal location for a radio telescope. As you can see, space is not just a vast and mysterious realm, it's also a valuable resource that we've harnessed for the betterment of our lives. From communication to scientific discovery, the applications of space are far-reaching and continue to expand as our technology and understanding evolve. Believe it or not, the unique environment of space isn't just for astronauts and satellites. It also has some pretty exciting potential for industrial applications. One area where space could really shine is manufacturing. The ultra-clean vacuum of space is perfect for processes that require pristine surfaces, like creating high-quality semiconductors or developing new materials. Of course, setting up shop in space isn't cheap or easy. It requires significant financial investment and overcoming logistical hurdles like transporting materials and equipment. But the potential benefits are enormous, with the possibility of developing revolutionary technologies and products. Interstellar travel, a staple of science fiction, remains a distant dream for now. The vast distances between stars present a formidable challenge, requiring breakthroughs in propulsion technology and life support systems to sustain crews on journeys lasting decades or even centuries. But that doesn't mean we've given up on the idea. Scientists and engineers are exploring various concepts for interstellar travel, like fusion-powered spacecraft, light cells, and even using antimatter as fuel. While these ideas are still theoretical, they ignite our imaginations and push the boundaries of what we believe is possible. And even if we can't travel to other stars just yet, space still has something to offer us here on Earth. The ultra-cold temperature of outer space can be used as a renewable energy source for cooling. By harnessing the natural processes of radiative cooling, where heat radiates away into space, we can develop innovative cooling technologies for buildings and other applications. It's a fascinating example of how the extreme conditions of space can be harnessed to benefit our lives on Earth. As we continue to explore and understand the vastness of space, who knows what other incredible applications and possibilities we'll uncover. The future of space is limited only by our imagination and our determination to reach for the stars. From the mind-boggling vastness of intergalactic space to the bustling activity in near-Earth orbit, the universe is an endless source of wonder and discovery. It's a place that challenges our understanding, ignites our imaginations, and beckons us to explore its infinite possibilities. Who knows what secrets still lie hidden in the depths of the cosmos? Perhaps you, the curious minds watching this video, hold the key to unlocking them. Maybe you'll be the one to develop the technology that takes us to the stars, or the one to uncover the secrets of dark matter and dark energy. Maybe you'll be the one to discover life on another planet, or even find a way to make space travel accessible to all. The future of space exploration is in your hands. Your curiosity, your passion, and your ingenuity could be the driving force behind the next giant leap for humankind. So keep looking up, keep asking questions, and never stop dreaming. The universe is ours to explore. Thank you everyone for watching. My name's The Big Why. Don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new to the Why Not family, a follow. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. And number 2 being 2 spheres tied by a rope. In this experiment, 2 spheres are connected by a rope and set into rotation around their common center of mass. The tension in the rope increases as the spheres spin faster, indicating the presence of centrifugal force. This tension, again independent of any external reference, supports the notion of absolute rotation. These experiments, while simple in concept, have profound implications for our understanding of motion and the nature of space. They suggest that rotation is not merely a relative phenomenon, but can be an absolute property of an object or system. However, as we'll explore further, these experiments and the concept of absolute rotation have been subject to various interpretations and critiques, particularly in the context of Einstein's theories of relativity. In classical mechanics, Newton's bucket argument is often cited as evidence for the existence of absolute rotation. Bishop Berkeley and Ernst Mach, for example, proposed that the rotation of the fixed stars relative to an object is equivalent to the rotation of the object relative to the fixed stars. They suggest that the centrifugal force experienced in the rotating bucket is not due to absolute rotation, but rather to the relative rotation between the water and the distant stars. While Newton's arguments may not definitively settle the debate, they do establish centrifugal force as an operational definition of absolute rotation. The presence of centrifugal force, as evidenced by the curved surface of the water, indicates that rotation is occurring, regardless of whether it's relative to absolute space or to the distant stars. This ongoing debate highlights the complexity of the concept of rotation and its relationship to the broader framework of physics. While Newton's argument provided a compelling case for absolute rotation with classical mechanics, the advent of Einstein's theories of relativity would challenge and refine our understanding of this phenomenon, leading to a more nuanced and complex picture of motion and the nature of space. Newton's second experiment, involving 2 spheres tied by a rope and rotating about their center of mass, offers another perspective on absolute rotation. In this experiment, the tension in the rope serves as an indicator of rotation. If the tension is non-zero, the spheres are rotating, regardless of whether the observer perceives it or not. This experiment is similar in principle than the rotating bucket experiment because it doesn't rely on gravity. The tension in the rope arises solely from the rotation of the spheres and the resulting centrifugal force. But beyond simply detecting rotation, this experiment allows us to quantify it. By measuring the sphere's rotation rate and comparing the calculated tension to the actual measured tension, we can determine whether we are in a stationary or rotating frame of reference. If the calculated and measured tensions agree, the observer is not rotating. However, if there's a discrepancy, it indicates the observer is rotating, and the magnitude of the discrepancy reveals the speed of rotation. For example, if the calculated tension is higher than the measured tension, the observer is rotating in the opposite direction of the spheres, and the greater the difference, the faster the rotation. The tension in the wire represents the centripetal force required to maintain the rotation. A rotating observer experiences both the centripetal force and the physical effects of their own inertia, which manifests as reactive centrifugal force. Whether these inertial effects are attributed to a fictitious centrifugal force is a matter of interception and choice of reference frame. In essence, Newton's two spheres experiment offers a more direct and quantitative way to measure absolute rotation compared to the bucket experiment. The tension in the rope serves as a clear indicator of rotation, providing a measurable quantity that can be used to determine the observer's rotational state. The debate over absolute rotation took an interesting turn with the introduction of special relativity. In 1913, French physicist Georges Sagnac conducted an experiment similar to the Michelson-Morley experiment, aiming to observe the effects of rotation and potentially prove the existence of the ether, a hypothetical medium for the progression of light waves. However, the results of the Sagnac experiment and subsequent similar experiments yielded a surprising conclusion. They showed that a stationary object on Earth's surface completes one rotation relative to the fixed stars for each rotation of the Earth. This finding seemed to support the notion of absolute rotation, contradicting Einstein's theory of special relativity, which had discarded the concept of stationary ether. These experimental results reignited the debate over the nature of rotation. While relativity had successfully explained many phenomena related to relative motion, the Sagnac effect seemed to suggest that rotation might be an exception, possessing an absolute quality independent of any reference frame. This apparent contradiction between the Sagnac effect and special relativity sparked further research and theoretical development. It led to the realization that while special relativity does indeed eliminate the concept of absolute velocity, it does not entirely rule out the possibility of absolute rotation. The debate over absolute rotation deepened with the advent of general relativity. Ernst Mach's principle, a hypothesis often attributed to him by Einstein, proposed a connection between local motion and a large-scale distribution of matter in the universe. Mach's principle suggests that the motion of distant stars influences the local inertial frame, the frame of reference in which an object experiences no acceleration. In other words, the rotation of the stars around us could be the reason we feel centrifugal force when we ourselves are rotating. Einstein illustrated this idea with the example of a rotating elastic sphere. Just like a spinning planet bulges at its equator, a rotating sphere deforms into a flattened shape due to centrifugal force. In classic mechanics, this deformation would require external forces acting on the sphere in a non-rotating frame of reference. These external forces could be interpreted as evidence of absolute rotation. However, general relativity offers a different explanation. In this framework, the deformation of the sphere is not due to external forces, but to the curvature of spacetime caused by the sphere's rotation. This curvature, in turn, is influenced by the distribution of matter in the universe as suggested by Mach's principle. While there's no need to invoke absolute space to explain the sphere's rotation in general relativity, the influence of distant stars through their gravitational effects on spacetime creates the appearance of absolute rotation relative to the stars. The local geodesics, the paths that objects follow in curved spacetime, are shaped by the distribution of matter and energy, including the distant stars. This interpretation of Mach's principle in the context of general relativity offers a nuanced perspective on the concept of absolute rotation. This suggests that while rotation may not be absolute in an empty universe, the presence of matter and energy throughout the universe creates a framework within which rotation can be measured and defined, even in the absence of a fixed reference point like absolute space. We've spun through the complexities of absolute rotation, tracing its evolution from Newton's bucket experiment to the nuances of Mach's principle and the implications of general relativity. We've explored the experimental evidence that supports the existence of absolute rotation, as well as the theoretical arguments that challenge it. This journey has revealed that the concept of rotation is not as simple as it may initially seem. It's a concept intertwined with our understanding of space, time, and the fundamental forces that govern the universe. Whether you believe in the existence of absolute rotation or embrace a purely relativistic perspective, the study of rotation continues to be a fascinating and thought-provoking endeavor. It challenges us to question our assumptions about the nature of motion and the very fabric of reality. The quest to understand absolute rotation is far from over. New experiments and theories may yet emerge, shedding further light on this enigmatic phenomenon. As we continue to explore the universe and delve deeper into the mysteries of physics, our understanding of rotation will undoubtedly continue to evolve. If you're intrigued by the concept of absolute rotation and its implications, I encourage you to explore the works of Newton, Mach, Einstein, and other physicists and philosophers who have grappled with this question. Engage with scientific literature and consider the different perspectives that have been proposed. Remember, the pursuit of knowledge is an ongoing process, and even the most fundamental concepts can be subject to revision and refinement. By questioning our assumptions and embracing new ideas, we can expand our understanding of the universe and our place within it. Thank you everyone for watching. My name's The Big Why. Don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new to the Why Not family, a follow. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. We often think of death as the inevitable end, the final curtain call on our existence. But what if there's a way to cheat death, to defy the laws of nature and achieve a kind of immortality? This is the provocative and mind-bending idea behind quantum suicide and immortality, a thought experiment that explores the intersection of quantum mechanics and the human experience of consciousness and mortality. In this video, we'll delve into this controversial and often misunderstood concept, examining its origins, its theoretical foundations, and the philosophical and ethical questions it raises. We'll explore the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, the idea that every quantum measurement splits the universe into multiple parallel realities, and how this interpretation leads to the possibility of quantum immortality, where a version of ourselves continues to exist in some parallel universe, even after experiencing death in our own reality. Quantum suicide is a mind-bending thought experiment that explores the intersection of quantum mechanics, consciousness, and mortality. It proposes a scenario where an individual, equipped with a quantum device that has a 50-50 chance of killing them, repeatedly triggers the device. According to the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, each trigger of the device would split the universe into two parallel realities, one where the individual survives and one where they die. From the perspective of the surviving observer, they would continue to exist in a reality where they always survive, experiencing a form of quantum immortality. As we dive further into this concept, it's important to emphasize that it's purely theoretical. As cosmologist Anthony Aguirre cautions, it would be foolish and even selfish to let this hypothetical possibility guide our actions in any real-life situations involving life and death. The concept of quantum suicide, while rooted in the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, was not explicitly formulated by Hugh Everett himself. Everett, the originator of the many worlds interpretation, focused on developing a solution to the paradoxes of quantum mechanics, not on exploring the implications for personal immortality. However, according to Eugene Shkovtsev's biography of Everett, it's believed that Everett was convinced that his theory guaranteed him a form of immortality. He argued that his consciousness, upon encountering a quantum event with multiple possible outcomes, would always follow the path that leads to survival, effectively ensuring his continued existence in some branch of the multiverse. Peter Byrne, another biographer of Everett, also reports that Everett privately discussed the concept of quantum suicide, suggesting that one could play high-stakes Russian roulette and survive in the winning branch of the multiverse. However, Byrne also notes that it's unlikely that Everett fully subscribed to this view, as it would also guarantee the death of most of his other selves, a rather irrational goal. The first formal introduction of the quantum suicide thought experiment within the scientific community is attributed to Ewan Squires in 1986. Subsequently, Hans Moravec and Bruno Marchal independently published papers on the subject in the late 1980s, further exploring its implications for the interpretation of quantum mechanics. The idea gained further traction through the work of Hugh Price and Max Tegmark, who discussed and formalized the concept in the 1990s. Philosophers Peter J. Lewis and David Lewis also contributed to the discussion in the early 2000s, analyzing the philosophical and ethical dimensions of the thought experiment. The quantum suicide thought experiment takes the concept of Schrodinger's cat to a new level, placing the observer inside the box and asking what they would experience. The two setups are very similar. A box contains a quantum device that has a 50-50 chance of triggering a fatal event, like the release of poison. The key difference is that the experimenter themselves is inside the box, observing and experiencing the outcome of quantum measurement. The purpose of this thought experiment is to test the different interpretations of quantum mechanics, particularly the many worlds interpretation versus the more traditional Copenhagen interpretation. Let's explore the implications of each interpretation. First, we'll go over the Copenhagen interpretation. In this view, the wave function collapses upon measurement, resulting in a single definite outcome. This means that after the first iteration of the experimenter is either dead or alive. If they're dead, there's no possibility of further iterations or experiences. Now let's go over the many worlds interpretation. In this interpretation, every quantum measurement leads to the branching of the universe into multiple parallel realities, each representing a different outcome. This means that even if the experimenter dies in one reality, there will always be another reality where they survive. From the perspective of the surviving experimenter, they would continue to exist in a reality where they always survive the experiment, experiencing a kind of quantum immortality. This is because their consciousness would only persist in the branches of the multiverse where they remain alive. To be considered a valid test of quantum mechanics, the quantum suicide experiment would need to meet certain criteria. The random number generator that triggers the fatal event must be quantum, not deterministic, to ensure the experimenter enters a superposition of being dead and alive. The experimenter must be killed or rendered unconscious quickly enough to prevent them from becoming aware of the outcome of the measurement. This avoids the potential for conscious observation to collapse the wave function and prevent the branching of the universe. The experiment must be virtually certain to kill the experimenter, not just injure them, to ensure a clear distinction between the outcomes of life and death. This thought experiment, while captivating in its theoretical implications, raises questions about its applicability to real-world situations. Can the concept of quantum immortality be extended to everyday causes of death? Physicist Max Tegmark offers a compelling counter-argument to this idea. He highlights a fundamental flaw in applying the quantum suicide scenario to real-world deaths. The process of dying is not a binary event, but rather a gradual and continuous one. In the thought experiment, the quantum device either kills the experimenter instantly or leaves them completely unharmed. This creates a clear distinction between the two possible outcomes, allowing for the observer's consciousness to seamlessly transition into the surviving branch of the multiverse. However, in most real-world deaths, consciousness doesn't simply switch off abruptly. It's a progressive process, with the continuum of states ranging from full awareness to diminished consciousness, coma, and ultimately, brain death. This gradual decline in consciousness makes it difficult to pinpoint the exact moment of death and raises questions about how the observer's consciousness would navigate the branching realities of the many worlds interpretation. Tegmark argues that in most cases, the observer would likely experience a gradual fading of awareness rather than a sudden jump into a parallel universe where they survive. This is because the physical processes involved in dying, such as organ failure or brain damage, progressively disrupt the neural activity that underlies consciousness. Therefore, even if the many worlds interpretation is correct, the subjective experience of dying would not likely involve a miraculous escape into a parallel universe, but rather a gradual loss of self-awareness and ultimately the cessation of conscious experience. The concept of quantum immortality has been met with both fascination and skepticism. Philosopher David Lewis, in his lecture, How Many Lives Has Schrodinger's Cat?, explored the implications of this idea, ultimately rejecting the many worlds interpretation in favor of alternative quantum theories. Lewis argued that if quantum immortality were true, an observer should subjectively expect to survive any danger they encounter, as their consciousness would always continue in some branch of the multiverse where they survive. However, this survival wouldn't guarantee good health or well-being, leading to a potential scenario of endless suffering and deterioration. This terrifying corollary has been challenged by other thinkers. David Papineau, a philosopher of science, criticizes Lewis's argument. He contends that the expectation of subjective survival in the quantum suicide scenario arises from a flawed understanding of probability. Instead of focusing on what will be experienced next, which implies a conscious observer, we should consider what will happen next, whether experienced or not. This perspective suggests that even in the many worlds interpretation, we should still expect to experience death with normal probabilities, as our consciousness doesn't necessarily persist in all possible branches of the multiverse. Philosopher of science Charles Sebens also challenges the idea of assured subjective survival. He argues that if there's any delay between the quantum branching and death, the rational expectation is to still die with normal probabilities. He points out that during the brief period after splitting, multiple copies of the observer exist, each with the chance of being the one who survives. Istvan Aroniosi, another philosopher, summarizes the criticisms of Lewis's immortality argument, highlighting the tension between actuality and probability in the many worlds interpretation. He suggests that even if we accept Lewis's assumptions, the terrifying corollary is not the only possible outcome. Aroniosi proposes two alternative scenarios: the comforting corollary, where an observer should never expect to get very sick, and the momentary life picture, where an observer experiences eternal life, mostly in an unconscious state, punctuated by brief moments of conscious awareness. He argues that these scenarios, while still unusual, are more reassuring than the prospect of endless suffering and deterioration. The concept of quantum immortality has not been universally embraced even among proponents of the many worlds interpretation. Some physicists and philosophers within this camp have expressed reservations and offered alternative perspectives. David Deutsch, a prominent physicist and advocate for the many worlds interpretation, argues that the notion of subjective immortality doesn't directly follow from quantum theory. He points out that it requires an additional assumption: namely that when making decisions, one should ignore the histories in which the decision maker is absent. Deutsch suggests that this assumption is likely false, as it contradicts our intuitive understanding of probability and decision making. Max Tegmark believes that experimenters should only expect a normal probability of survival, not guaranteed immortality. Tegmark explains that in the quantum suicide scenario, the experimenter's probability amplitude in the wave function decreases significantly with each iteration. This means that their existence becomes less and less likely in the multiverse. According to the anthropic principle, which states that we are more likely to observe universes where we exist, the experimenter is less likely to find themselves in a world where they are less likely to exist. Therefore, the probability of the experimenter observing a world where they survive decreases with each iteration, eventually approaching zero. This problem of reduced measure has also been highlighted by philosopher Lev Vaidman in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. He argues that the large measures of the world with dead successors is a good reason not to play the quantum suicide game. Physicist Sean M. Carroll, another advocate for the many worlds interpretation, also weighs in on the debate. He argues that experiences and rewards should not be considered shared between future versions of oneself, as these versions become distinct individuals when the world splits. He emphasizes that quantum suicide, even in the many worlds interpretation, still results in the death of some of these future selves, which is a morally significant outcome. The quantum suicide thought experiment and the notion of quantum immortality has also faced criticism from skeptics of the many worlds interpretation. Physicist Philip Ball, a critic of the many worlds interpretation, describes the quantum suicide experiment as cognitively unstable and emblematic of the challenges the theory faces with probabilities. He questions the validity of modifying probability rules in life or death situations and emphasizes the incompatibility of the many worlds interpretation with the coherent notion of selfhood. Ball argues that attempts to justify probabilities in this framework often lead to the conclusion that our conscious experience is restricted to a single world, a restriction that he finds arbitrary and unjustified. Philosopher of science Peter J. Lewis also criticizes the quantum suicide thought experiment, highlighting its difficulty in accommodating probability within the many worlds framework. He argues that if all possible outcomes of quantum measurement occur, it becomes challenging to make rational decisions, as the probabilities of different outcomes seem meaningless. In his book, Quantum Ontology, Lewis further explores this issue, arguing that the subjective immortality argument relies on a flawed understanding of probability. He suggests that the Deutsch-Wallace decision theoretic approach, which doesn't allow for counting branches or persons in the multiverse, offers a more consistent way to address probabilities in the many worlds interpretation. In conclusion, the quantum suicide thought experiment and the concept of quantum immortality, while intriguing, has faced significant criticism from skeptics of the many worlds interpretation. These criticisms highlight the challenges of reconciling the subjective experience of consciousness with the vast and seemingly paradoxical nature of the multiverse. While the debate continues, these critiques encourage us to approach these concepts with caution and critical thinking, recognizing the limitations of our current understanding and the need for further exploration and refinement of our theories. If this exploration has piqued your curiosity, I encourage you to delve deeper into the world of quantum mechanics, the philosophy of mind, and the concept of the multiverse. Explore the works of Hugh Everett, Max Tegmark, David Lewis, and other thinkers who have grappled with these fascinating and complex ideas. And who knows, perhaps by contemplating the possibilities of quantum immortality, you'll gain a new perspective on the nature of consciousness, the meaning of life, and the potential for existence beyond the confines of our physical bodies. Thank you everyone for watching. My name's The Big Y. Don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new to the Why Not family, a follow. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.